Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smashbox TV's podcast 421. Terry Miller, the disc golf guy, not quite alongside Johnny V.
It's been so
Yet
long,
again,
Terry.
virtual.
Terry, it's been
I
so
know.
long. You've
I know, and
been
I'm good
to
with it. I'm good with it.
Sweden and Bend, and now Bend again, and I don't know.
Yeah, the World Championships, I think, were in there.
Something like that.
There's been quite a bit of travel going on, and in about a week, I should be back to my home state and to the city of Milwaukee area. So here we are. It is post Green Mountain Championships weekend, and real quickly, I want to throw out there, I reached out to Ricky Wysocki. He said that he was going to be going to the Red Sox game tonight and that he should be able to join us. And so as soon as he's back, I'm assuming there's going to be traffic. There's going to be other things. I haven't even looked at the score myself, so I'm not even sure if the game's over just yet. But as soon as he gets in position, hopefully he'll be able to join us, and we'll talk to him. But he's only got 2 World Championship titles until he gets here. And even once he arrives, we've got none other than 3-time world champ, Nate Doss. Hey, buddy.
What's up, T-Dog? Long time no see.
Yeah, I know. Now that I'm officially squatting at your house.
Yeah, you're officially
feels great.
my roommate.
I've been there, Doss.
well, you know-
Doss, I've been there. It ain't pretty.
I know. Johnny, you've been there many more times than I have, and he's got the apnea machine now, so it's a little quieter. I
Yeah,
think.
it certainly is. In fact, I think while I've been gone, quick major tangent here, Respironics, who makes the sleep apnea machine, is one of the more popular ones. There was some major recall on them. This was a countrywide problem or a worldwide problem. I just received a notification that I think a new machine has showed up at my house since I've been
Ooh.
gone. There was a major recall.
Oh, wow.
And this was going on all of last year. There was something about some of the product inside there, some silicone or something causing cancer. I don't know. But
Let's hope it's not that.
yeah, so I believe there's going to be a new one sitting at my house ready for
By
me
the
to
way,
put on.
the Red Sox game is in the 9th inning at the moment, and Sox are up 5-1. So, yeah, I already saw a picture from Ricky at the game. So he said
5-2 now,
Yeah,
by the
we've been-
way. 5-2.
Oh,
Let's
Nelly.
hope there's not a tie. Let's just hope this thing ends in the top of the 9th, so to speak, so that Ricky and Ari and the Economos and everyone else that they're with can get back to the house safely. And then once he's all settled in, hopefully he can still join us for a little while tonight. But yes, here we are. So for those who are a little confused about what's going on, Nate and I are still in Bend. We're here in the Disc Golf Pro Tour studio, a.k.a. Nate and Val's house. And Johnny is in Milwaukee, and hopefully Ricky will be able to join us from out there just outside of Boston. So, Johnny, big weekend, GMC.
Yeah,
We
our
were
first.
switching the show on the MPO side.
That's my gig
well,
now.
Ian Lunger,
I just do
right, was
MPO.
switching the show on the FPO.
Ian was doing FPO, yeah.
At one point, I saw a just a little tiny dip of a camera, and somebody on the internets was screaming, "Way to go, Johnny!" I'm like, this time it wasn't his fault.
Well, and it's
You
kind of
weren't
funny.
even- you weren't even pressing those buttons.
Yeah, for FPL I'm not, but we kind of have 3. I mean, I'm the primary director, but we kind of have 3 directors in that I do all the live stuff. If it's live, it's on me. But Mo and Gary are both running replay and switching cameras as well. So when we go to a chase card, it's rarely live. Sometimes, but rarely. And so they switch cameras. And every once in a while, if they're not paying attention, they either pick the wrong camera because maybe the camera's shuffled, or maybe at times the catch camera didn't get a chance to get in the proper position before the first throw, depending on how the previous hole went. So Gary will switch to a camera and the camera's still walking to where they're going. So I am just going to say that every time you see a camera dip, it's not my fault. No, that's the blanket statement.
I'm going to blame you anyway.
Like purely
Every
not his
time.
fault.
Every time. It's impossible.
Yeah.
I'll say too on the Sunday round. I mean, with that weather,
It was
Johnny,
It
how
was rough.
tough is it for like the cameramen to like be at their best? I don't know. It's tough.
I mean, ultimately, it's very difficult for a number of reasons. Because you would think in the rain that the rounds would go so much slower. Everybody's got to wipe off a disc and get under umbrella. And sometimes that's true. But as we saw for the first 2 to 3 holes, a player will sit there, wait, get ready until it's their turn, and then just up and throw. They get up and throw, and it almost gives our cameras very little time to do that. On top of, add that onto Isaac Robinson, who is fast as it is, I think this actually slowed him down. And but other players just got up and threw. So those first 4 holes were kind of a nightmare. It cleared up a little bit after that, but those first four holes were tough because you've got cameras trying to rush into position and make sure that all their gear that's getting covered isn't blocking their camera. And you've got players that are just up and throwing and not that they need to or should ever, quote unquote, give our guys a chance to get into position, but it was a free-for-all for those first couple holes. It slowed down after that. It got a little chaotic at the very end with some spectators and some camera stuff going on, but it's definitely difficult for the cameras on site. I did not envy them at all.
Yeah, and just one very specific note, you look at Wysocki, who I didn't even realize it in real time because I'm doing a million things here in the booth as well, but in real time, Ricky Wysocki grabbed his disc on the tee of 1 and almost ran up to the tee, barely even hesitated, and then just got up and launched his initial tee shot, which I totally support and understand and everything else with regard to.
In fact, it's how you play.
Quick. Yeah, it's how I play. And Ricky's typically relatively fast, but just the fact, if you really go back and watch it, he grabs his disc, walks up to the tee, and throws barely like he even hesitates for a moment. And so that's where it can be really tough because, like you're saying, Johnny, just finding how much the players are either going to hold back or they're going to speed up. And sometimes they just might seek a moment, kind of like when it's windy out, where it's like, oh, wait, I'm just going to get up and throw real quick. So it can be a little bit tough to follow along with all of that. So. Well,
and I also find it difficult as commentators because, I mean, we're so used to the
routine.
Yeah, the routine of the player and kind of the pacing. And, of course, we're a second and a half behind or whatever it is. So it's like, oh, we're getting in, you're getting a little statement in. And then all of a sudden they go and you're talking right over their putting or something. Overall, it was not an easy day, I think, for everybody involved. But, boy, I mean, did we see it coming? I remember at one point Sexton goes, man, I think everybody probably turned it off after hole 13 or whatever. And several people at Bevel were telling me that. Like, we left, we went out and played golf, and then we rushed home and watched the last few holes. I don't think anybody saw it turning around like that at all.
No, and that kind of comes into, the first, we'll talk about the controversy first, which is the umbrella that was on 6 inches inside the OB and the big what to do about it and whose it was. And, I'll say the umbrella and the tall boy. Speaking of drinks, I'll take a cheers to that. I figured you guys were drinking, so
Johnny
I would.
B. Cheers, Johnny. I can't wait to see you in person once
I know.
again.
I know.
Johnny
We need
B.
to get that going. But so now we've got this big discussion about where spectators should be. Whose umbrella was that? Was it the spotters? Was it the fan that was standing there taking the camera shot who ended up moving it? I don't know. No one has come forward and claimed it, as I don't think they are willing to do. That umbrella's probably still sitting there as nobody wants to go near it to claim that it's theirs. But
yeah.
So you're seeing a big discussion online and everywhere about how far should spectators be from the OB line? Should there be a buffer? Should it matter? Does it depend on the hole? Does it depend on, the optimal flight of the disc on a specific hole? On that particular hole, all the players throw wide over the OB, skip in. How far do spectators need to be off of that line? Is it 5 feet? Is it 30 feet? Because every disc comes in at a different angle, and depending on the weather, it's going to skip a different amount. You have spectators 5 feet off that line. That's not nearly enough for a disc to skip in. I mean, you'd have to be coming in at a sharp angle to get a 5-foot gap. So ultimately, the safest, I would say, is 30 feet. But is that a realistic number for our spectators? 30 feet from an OB line? I don't think it is. And me personally, and I know this is probably maybe on the, I don't say hot take side of it, but I think spectators should be right up on the line. I kind of don't mind. I think once a player, and I know players throw over the OB a lot, but I kind of feel like spectators need to have their head on a swivel. They need to try to avoid the disc if it's coming at them, But players also have to understand that if you go outside of the designated fairway, so to speak, it's kind of fair game at that point. Not that people should be swatting at it like a baseball or anything like that out of midair, but I just think that, we can't rely on spectators to be that far away from things that are going to be interfering. Nothing should ever be inbounds. I want to make that clear. That umbrella, that tall boy, that was uncalled for. But we see cameramen get hit, and they're inbounds. So, Doss, you have a lot of experience on tour. Terry, you need to unmute if you're going to talk. But
oh yeah. So what I see, this is why I shouldn't have a mute button.
No, you don't.
Well,
I don't give him a mute button.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm trying to save everybody from the coughing. That's
Yeah.
going on here.
So what I was just going to say quickly though about this, and I know everybody's going to have an opinion on this, and there's just flat out no perfect answer because there's going to be subjectivity no matter what. What I will say though is, if we magically create and enforce a 5-foot line, and something happens, the next thing is going to be, well, it should be a 10-foot line. And once we have a 10-foot line and someone gets hit, then it should be a 20-foot line. Like, no matter what the distance is or isn't, there's always going to be room to say, well, it should have been more or it should have been less or whatever the case might be. Until you're 50 feet away on every single fairway, which is just legitimately not practical if we're going to have spectators, anything short of 30 or 40 or 50 feet is going to be could always be scrutinized. So whether that's 2 meters or 4 meters or 9 meters, whatever the case is, that's my one problem when you're talking about exact numbers. Do I like the idea of being back? I like 10 feet. I'll just pull a number out of a hat and say 10 feet. Yeah, I do. But I think this all gets avoided if you just always have spectators with their head on a swivel. And that's a big ask because inevitably that's not going to happen. You see that in a lot of sports. There's spectators,
baseball,
that just
golf,
aren't paying attention or lose focus. And it's like 300 other people can move, and then it still hits that one person that didn't move that should have moved. And they never thought a disc could get to them. It's really tough. I mean, you watch a lot of golf. I know you pull from that, and you probably want everybody 400 feet away. But what do you want to happen?
I think everything is up to subjectivity. I mean, if you're just saying, well, spectators on the line, well, that's okay in areas, definitely where it's say it's 100-foot. I'll even go smaller. Say it's a 50-foot wide fairway, but it's wide open hyzer bomb on the right. Well, you can have spectators along that left-hand line all day you want. No player's ever really going over there. And if they are, they're skipping towards those fans instead of coming in over their head.
And it's going to hit them and stay in bounds as opposed to go out of bounds? Or we just say, I'm sorry, Chris Clemens, you don't get to throw on the left-hand side.
I'm just saying it's I think, and so this is where we get into the point where it can't just be one for all or, one rule for everything. I think everything is a little subjective because obviously, you look at like hole 17 at the USDGC. You can't have fans on the hay bales.
No.
That's just not how it goes.
You're right. I think there needs to be a TD discretion of like, okay, guess what? This hole, we do need spectator ropes. You're right. You couldn't have people standing in the middle because it's quote-unquote OB. You need to have them off to the side or something like that.
Off to the side. And in this case, it's just so unfortunate because it wasn't a person. And it was
not directly.
It was because somebody said it there. Mm-hmm. But it was an umbrella. And it was weird. It was just weird the way it went down. Ultimately, the hole ended up being super weird. And I don't know if that was just like divine intervention or something. I don't know.
I mean, it was Nate Sexton. He called for it, right? He called for the curse.
Yeah, and I saw a number of people, before the day was even done, almost coming at Nate like, well, Nate called that. Nate said that was going to happen, or Nate called for it to happen.
Put it into the atmosphere.
Ether, yeah, exactly. That that there should be some kind of karma that goes now in Chris's favor. I mean, you could woulda, coulda, shoulda all day, especially with that, because let's be very clear. We all three of us could very much agree or disagree whether or not that was going to stay in bounds or not.
Oh, there's no way to say. It's a 50-50 after, like, at that point, 50-50.
That's my point. But there's some people that are passionate saying, no, that had a 99% chance of staying in bounds. And there's plenty of people that are like, no. That had a 99% chance of going out of bounds. We'll never know for sure. I mean, look at the crazy bounce and skips and other things that can happen out there anyway. I mean, Ricky throws that same putt. How many, when he's putting for his 3, how many times does that splash and then get up and roll on him?
Well, we actually said that had it went out of bounds and Ricky marks that putt, he probably smashes in the 3 because that's what he had been doing all round long. I mean, think about it. He had gone out of bounds how many times and made every putt or gotten up and down. So, yeah, I don't know.
I'm sure it's a different focus putting for circle 3 versus putting for a birdie. Like,
exactly.
It's a different mentality. It's a different thought process. I mean,
yes.
It's whatever it is. I think just to wrap up the whole spectator issue, again, my vote, I don't mind if we put people 10 feet off the fairway, that's fine, or 10 feet off the OB line, that's fine. I think it is also up to the players to say and point to whether it's direct the crowd or tell, we'll just say like a Jeff Spring or a crowd control person, hey, I'm going over there. That's where I'm going. Because I keep thinking of the really long hole at the country club, the one that eagled a couple years ago.
14, yep.
Yeah, watching them throw rollers that can go way off to the left and still come back in bounds. That's all fair game at that point. Like, you just need to kind of be... I think just as a player, this needs to be part of your, I don't say routine, but thought process to say, hey, guess what? We are all going to probably take the big hyzer route, but can we make sure that the spectators are aware that we're going to do that? Call the dude that's up there and just let him know to notify the spectators before we throw, so that everyone can be aware of it. And errant throws are going to errant. That's just the way it works, man.
And I like that concept is great, and I'm good with that. However, never in a million years would you put any single person, especially in our MPO field, on that tee of 14 in this case, on that tee, and are any of them going to be like, hey, can you make sure everything's clear just slightly deep of the basket to the spot I really don't want to be in? Like, I agree with what you're saying, but in some crazy scenarios, I mean, let's face it, that wasn't that good of a tee shot, no matter whether it was inbounds or out.
Things are going to happen.
Ricky's best tee shot in the first place.
We can't account for everything.
It's not a spot you could have ever, kind of accounted for ahead of time.
You can't account for everything. You just have to take your best chances, because even if, I mean, and I go way back to the Memorial when James Conrad hit the water bottle that was sitting out. That was 10 feet off the fairway. He was going wide skip hyzer. That was over I think maybe it was on the sidewalk or just over it.
It was on the sidewalk. It was on the sidewalk, which is out of bounds.
Yeah, which is out of bounds. So that's just, we're going to see more of it. You're going to see cameramen get hit. You're going to see spectators get hit. You're going to see objects that shouldn't be there get hit. We can do our best, and ultimately it'll get better, but I don't think it's ever going away.
Well, I also look at, and this will probably be my final thought on it, I look at, as the sport grows, the staff or the volunteers have to grow as well. I mean, there has to be a certain number of people. You can't have 5,000 people on a course and cover that with 6 people holding a string. You need a certain percentage of people that are in the staff of the tournament saying, hey, let's clear it out. Let's, and you don't have to do that. Once the lead card's gone through a hole, everybody moves forward and they kind of, make sure that things are out of the way. And just think of where that umbrella was. There was only like 5 people over there, because that's not even really a walkway for the spectators. So it's even a question of like how they even got in that area. They were just kind of working their way to that area, and that's probably not even an area they should have been, but because there maybe wasn't a staff person there, or the inclement weather, or whatever it was, that's how that person ended up there, and that's how that umbrella ended up there. It's unfortunate. We have to learn from it. Do I think it affected the outcome of the tournament? No, but I think it also puts a little doubt into it, because we would have all loved to have seen what that disc did if it didn't hit the umbrella.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think we got the same result we would have gotten as far as a winner had that not happened. Because I don't believe, again, I don't believe that if he hits that and goes out of bounds, we'll say that he takes anything worse than the 5 or the double bogey he took. So I just don't. I don't think
it would have been worse if it had kicked at Obi.
Oh yeah,
this whole conversation.
Yeah, I believe
right,
so.
Because then you would have all the Ricky people saying, "Hey, that kicked at OB. Like,
Sure.
what the heck, you know?"
Yep. Especially if it kicked OB and then he went on to do the same thing he did. Like, people would be just ridiculous. It would be ridiculous. And maybe we're fortunate that we got the result we did. But you're right. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure it would have been worse.
Yeah.
Terry,
Right.
do you want to talk about a little bit about FPO before we move on to MPO? And
please. That'd be great.
Yeah, let's do that because I was just I'm just texting Ricky again. I'm assuming that he is the game finish.
It's the game's in Cincinnati, isn't it?
No, it's in Boston.
Really? Because when I was looking,
that would be really weird if he's at
this. That's what I'm.
If he's at this,
I understand that.
Last time I checked,
but Terry
it says leads way in Cincinnati. Wow.
Yeah.
So maybe
I was
he's
about
not at a Boston Red Sox game.
Oh, maybe he's just visiting. Do they do like watch parties?
I don't. What do I know?
I thought it was weird because I was like, Boston's up
right.
5-1, and it was the bottom of the ninth, and I'm like, no, if they're in Boston, where technically you would think he would be, he should be gone from that game because it should be over. But clearly, it's in Cincy, so.
You're absolutely right. I'm just watching the highlights, and there was a home run jack. And it was in Cincinnati. So, yeah, maybe Ricky was just visiting the stadium. Hey, look, that's what you get. You get
that could be
some perks when you're the champion of the GMC.
I'm guessing now DD just fired up the helicopter
and just buzzed him in there.
Just dropped him over the green monster. Let him sit there.
Yeah, something like that. All right. Either way, we'll wait to find out. I just text him and see if we'll get an update. But yeah, let's touch on some FPO action and literally, full disclosure. Normally, I'm kind of really double checking everything before we go live in terms of things that are being posted and said. We were doing some commentary for the final round of the Swedish event that I just attended, but I did see a post in it. I'm going to just read it because it's part of the conversation for tonight. Katrina had just posted an hour ago saying, for the first time since 2013, I placed outside the cash line. In fact, I haven't missed cash in an Elite Series event since 2011. Although my cash streak is a record, it's hard to believe it's over. I'm evaluating both my physical and mental game and look forward to the challenge it'll take me to get back to playing great golf again. From my past experiences, both in life and my disc golf career, I've learned so much from the difficult times like this, although it's hard to see how. I know I'll look back and be grateful for the opportunity to become a better golfer and person by overcoming. And
that's only assuming she gets
clearly,
to be. That's only assuming she gets better, right?
Well, I mean, yeah. And let's be real. I can't. There's no way someone as good as Kat doesn't bounce back. But very much, not in a positive sense, but very much a conversation. Footnote of this weekend: Katrina Allen, Sarah Hokum, both of them.
And Paige almost missed it. One stroke.
And
she had
Paige
to birdie the last hole.
Birdie's the last hole. So I'll go right to you, Dog. Like, what do you make of all-time greats? Paul Macbeth missed it at DDO this year. He said he was too stubborn, wouldn't change his game plan. Kale, I believe, streak came to an end. But all-time great in Katrina and Sarah not cashing at this event. What's your gut reaction to that?
Well, my gut reaction is that all streaks have to come to an end at some point. Is it hard when it happens? Yeah. My cash streak ended at the Brent Hambrick Memorial, which was a tournament that I had played extremely well. And I'll tell you right now, after that tournament was over, I was in a dark, dark place. A dark, dark place. Because you're not used to that. You're not used to, especially for somebody like Katrina Allen, you're not used to not competing at the highest level. She said in her post since 2011. I mean, that's 11 years?
11 years.
11 years since she hasn't finished in the cash at an Elite Series event. And My initial reaction, because Katrina is so good, goes to, is she hurt? I think nothing more than that, because and players play through injuries all the time, and I just want to know, is she hurt? Is she not 100%? Because if she isn't, well, then it makes a little bit more sense. If it's just she had a bad weekend, she played bad, and again, from experience at the Hambrick, I knew I was out of the cash going into the final round, and I was like clawing and scratching. And I was just trying too hard.
Yeah.
And ultimately
Additional
that
pressure
sent me further down the toilet bowl. And so I don't know. I'm not ready to even question Katrina, but it hasn't been her best season, but yet she's still one of the best players.
It's hard for me to fathom. I think about her and Paige. I think about those two who, for the longest time, rarely were finishing off of a podium. And now to see both of them have their struggles this year has just thrown the FPO conversation just totally out the window from what you've experienced. You always have said Paige and Kat show up, everyone else is, essentially playing for third at that point. And then this year, it's been truly nothing like that. They just have not been a dominant force that I've come to get used to over these last 10 years or so. And then to see both of them in jeopardy of not cashing, along with Sarah Hokum, honestly, it just kind of takes me back. It just makes it so surprising, because I think I can answer it for you. I don't believe Katrina's hurt in any physical sense. She's talked a little bit about adjusting her, her form when it comes to her driving. Her putting, I feel like, has turned a corner sometime last year and has
better.
Been very, very solid
100%.
for the most part. Every time at least we're seeing her on coverage. I don't know what it was, other than just clearly not executing.
Yeah,
this
just
weekend.
not playing good. I mean, that's just simply it. It's just you're just not playing good.
I want to put my
Johnny,
my AM sports talk radio hat on and get into the silly weeds. How much do we think it's mental? How much do we think that these women now are looking at, maybe less Sarah Hokum, because I think Sarah, and let me preface to say, I'm sorry, Sarah Hokum, but she's on the downside of her career. She's older. She's playing Masters. Maybe the FPO drive isn't there anymore. But for the other women, for Kat and Paige, how much do we think it might be mental looking at all these younger women who are dominating and throwing further than them? That is it possible that their head's not in the right space? That they now, for the first time in their careers, are really sensing doubt that they dominate this division, and that's showing in their game. What do you think, Doss? Being a man who's not on the downside of his career.
I left before I started to hit that slippery slope. No, I totally agree with you. It is mental. And all of these things we're talking about, they're not oblivious to it. But what do we say when we see really good players in any sport not play up to their ability? It's always mental. Your mind is not in the right place. You're not thinking about the right things. The preparation's not there. You have things that are distracting you, whether it's other hobbies or other interests, or you're just not having a great week. It'll be interesting to see how she bounces back. And the Sarah Hokum conversation is, I think, an interesting conversation from the fact that we look at Owens Scoggins, who is a Masters level player as well. And I mean, I don't know what you guys think. That is just up and up and up. She gets more and more confident every single week. She can't throw any further than Sarah Hokum. That I can tell. I mean, I haven't seen them play together that often, but her mental game, she just absolutely loves playing disc golf, throwing shots, making putts, just having a good time, smiling. And so, to answer your question, yes, it's got to be mental, because look at how Owen is from a physical standpoint. She's not throwing any further than anybody else, but she's still battling for second and third place. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah,
and obviously, comparing Owen and Sarah Hokum, I think Sarah probably has a slightly more accurate forehand, but Owen has, I think, a slightly better forehand and a much better backhand and a much better putt. So I think we're seeing
Gotcha.
we're seeing what a putt can do, a really dominant putt can do in the FPO division between her and Tatar. Like that is because that's what Owen is doing. She's hitting like 30-some% from circle 2. Those are, I mean, to compare, those are phenomenal MPO numbers. And Owen is just gliding through the FPO field on these just great putting numbers. So it's really nice to see.
Have you looked at Owens Scoggins like money for the year? It's astronomical.
Yeah.
I think she for 2022, I think she's already made more money than I ever made in any individual season. Now again, I retired in 2018. Retired. I never thought I was retired, but I guess I am now because
You just said
I
it.
spend more time with you than anybody else.
Did you file your paperwork with the PDGA yet for retirement?
Yeah.
Well, I must have because they took down all my stats, but that's another conversation.
Ooh, low-key burn.
Ouch.
But I'm blown away by that, and that
Yeah.
just shows. And you look at it, it's like top 10 after top 5 after top 3, like time after time again. So I just got to say, like, I know that there's people struggling, but there's also people like playing way above or getting better still.
Yeah.
Yeah, and let me just back a few of those details up, especially after we add on the Green Mountain weekend, where Owen picked up yet another $3,000. Owen's earnings, let's put it this way, in FPO, she's played 27 events. She's won a few dollars short of 40 grand. You add in her FP40, she's won 3 events, all 3 that she's entered, and tack on another 6 grand. So she's sitting just a few $100s short of $46,000.
And how much
for
did
the
she
year.
win at the match play? Which is not in
and
there.
she won another 10 grand at the match play.
Add that in.
So Owens
Gotta add that in.
Scoggins is out there doing work, and it's just incredible to see what she's putting together.
And to play that many events.
Yes.
Doesn't that show some durability as well?
For sure. I mean, she had 27 open events so far, again, plus the match play, and then 3 more FP40 events. And, she's just a few days over, or a tad north of 40, and looks like there's just no slowing down for her. So it's so impressive what she's been doing, and we'll back up a few details from this weekend. She was first in C1X putting at 88%. A couple years ago when Corey Ellis and/or Andrew Marweed were leading putting, I think their end of the year stat was like 89%. So something like that. So 88% C1X putt. She was third in Circle 2 putts at 25% of them, which is looks like she made 5.
She was 5 for 20.
5 for 20. And then here's what I think is maybe one of the most impressive stats out of all of them off the page. Second in birdies collected. You don't think of a Fox Run Meadows, and you don't think of some of these holes and think, man, yeah, that's where Owen's just going to go pick up a whole bunch of birdies and put them in her basket. That's what she's going to be doing. You think, well, okay, she's going to play a little bit safer and make some more putts and then just escape danger more. But it was not the case. She was out there collecting birdies when others weren't. At one point during the final round, I think I said she had like 6 birdies, and the other 3 card mates of her only had 7 combined.
Yeah.
So Owen is getting more birdies than other women as well, just shy of Tatar, who I think is leading in the birdie category for the season as well. No surprise with her results, but it's just funny because when you think about Owen and her game and her finishes and her performances, it feels very different from how Kristen arrives there, but yet she's finishing on the podium right near Kristen almost every event, it feels like. It's crazy. Absolutely crazy. So, yes, Owens Scoggins, very much, kind of quietly getting it done while entertaining us.
And
loudly.
I just feel like she makes it fun.
Exactly.
She
Just
does.
makes it fun to watch, like just that happy, like I am happy to be here playing no matter what happens. Because even something bad happens to her and she's still like,
She laughs.
she laughs.
I'm not even
And
going to
she's
lie.
the first to say, oh, I took a double bogey.
Yeah.
Well, that's better than a triple. Let's move
Yeah.
on. Like
there's
so
always
impressive.
the talk about like who's your dream foursome. I know that's like a conversation people like to have. Like who would you love to? Like she's in it for me. To play around with her seems like no matter what happens, I could throw 3 of them in the drink at Fountain, and she would probably jump in and with me and to go get them. Like she is so much fun that I think that I can't imagine anyone. I've never seen anyone upset playing around with her ever.
Me neither. Yeah.
She
well,
brings it. She brings
If
it
you're
to
not
the
having a good
card.
time around her, it's your fault.
Yes.
Like, let's put it that way.
Yeah,
That's
on you,
what I
huh?
would say. Yeah, it's not her, it's you.
Mhm.
So
So let's
All right.
let's
Well,
real
then what do we
quick
make-
talk. Go ahead, Nick. Go ahead, Nate.
Go ahead.
I was
No,
gonna say we
you
can
take
talk a
it.
little bit
No,
about the
take it.
results of FPO. We saw Kristen Tatar obviously take this one down relatively easily. I think she was tied going into the final round. She shot 7 strokes better than Henna and won by 7. Henna once again just kind of having issues with her putter and OB, just not working out for her as we discussed. Owens Scoggins in 3rd. Missy Gannon jumps into 4th place. 5th place, Valerie Mondahano. 6th place, Evelina Salonen. 7th place, Natalie Ryan, which is a name we haven't heard recently. I think now that we're getting back into the woods, her strengths are starting to dissipate. She's much more of a distance thrower. So, but I think I got a good feeling about her at MVP or at the MVP Open. I almost went way old school with that name of that event. Diesel.
Dude,
Deanne
I
Carey.
messed that up. I messed that up
Oh.
during the show too because
I have to.
I've got so many names
consciously-
in my head for it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna call it Vibram, or just call it the Steve Dodge, the MSDGC. That's what I'm going back to. I'm gonna call it the
you go.
MSDGC.
Marshall Street.
Marshall
Street.
Championships,
Yep. Deanne Carey, Diesel in 8th place, and then rounding out your top 10, Tate, Finley, and Hansen. So those are your top women. Terry, did anything surprise you in the FPO field at all? Like other
I mean,
other than the cuts
without beating it to
other
without
than the
beating it to
women
death,
who
you have to.
who didn't.
I mean, even Paige, who made the cut, but like we said, had to make the the final putt in round 3 to get into the cut. Clearly, that's crazy. I mean, she talked in the interview, in the press conference interview, about how she understood with 2 rounds left to play, there was just legitimately way too much ground to make up on Kristen. And then you look at this event, I think she was back 18 with 2 rounds left to play. To Kristen, or maybe it was 21 at the time, whatever the number was, and it's just crazy. I mean, you look at her scorecard and you see that in the final round, she had 1 birdie. She birdied hole 17. I mean,
That ain't gonna do it.
That's just insane. No, that's insane. I mean, did she have only 1 or 2 other people had less birdies than her in an entire field, and Paige is one of the greatest of all time, most dominant competitors we've ever seen, and like Katrina this weekend especially, just didn't have her stuff. And I don't want to say it's hard for me to swallow. It's very odd for me to see.
Well, it's shocking.
Yeah.
I mean,
Shocking
it's
is a great word.
It's simply shocking.
The past
I don't
month,
even really know how to explain it.
yeah, the past month, both women have not been shooting what we expect them to shoot, even close to what we expect them to shoot. Like, it doesn't surprise me that Tatar is winning, but it does surprise me how far back those other 2 women are. If they're taking 4th and 5th and 6th, I'm like, okay, Tatar is clearly still playing very well, but they're not only just not shooting. Tatar's not only dominating. Those other women are not even competing at their level. Like they're checked out, and I don't understand why. Obviously, it was said some sort of mental thing. How do you feel about the playoff system? Like the new, we're getting all ramped up for the postseason. Does it matter? Does it? Do you feel?
So
does it feel like
real
postseason
quick,
to you? Go ahead.
Yeah, let me say this real quick. More appropriate disclaimer than ever before, considering our backdrop. All views expressed here tonight are those exclusively of Terry Miller, of Smashbox TV, and of the Disc Golf Guy, and are not reflective of the Disc Golf Pro Tour, who often contracts me.
I got the right backdrop. You don't.
To me, as you lobbed up that question, I was thinking, and I know Mo is out there watching, who
He
helped
was. I think he went to bed.
implement it. It sounds terrible, and I'm going to still say it. It meant no difference to me whatsoever. And now I wasn't on the ground. I'm not clearly vying for any of those extra 125 percentage points. I get all of that. I like the idea of trying to make it more exciting, and I maybe it has to like still settle in, or it will grow into more excitement, but for me, the Green Mountain Championships, the MVP Open are incredible standalone events at world-class facilities. Even if I went there and I was fed, ice cream every night, the playoffs wouldn't have mattered anymore to me. Like, from that perspective. Now, will it grow in 5 years? Will I be eating those words with my ice cream? Maybe. But right now, I as a non-employed person of the Disc Golf Pro Tour with my own brain and my own thoughts, it didn't mean anything to me.
I think
I think that's okay
go ahead,
to
Nate.
say.
Yeah.
No, I really think that's okay to say, Terry. Regardless of the disclaimer, I think where we are, and we have been for a long time, is we're trying to learn. And you can only learn by testing it out.
Yep.
I mean, think about when Steve Dodge put the Tour Championship as the Tour Championship. It's not the same that it was when we played it the first time up at GMC that first year as it is this year. Things progress. You got to test it out. I think there's things I like about it. I like that these are additive tournaments. I like that those points don't get dropped. There's already people that have earned their spots. Kat and Paige, they played terrible. They didn't move anywhere. But Hannah Bloomerus, further down the board, well, she moved closer to being inside that cut line. Evelina Salonen, I think at the bottom, it's better. At the top, it's not as important.
As impactful
At the moment. But I think you have to do it to see what happens. At the end of the day, I said it a million times off air and on air. We're here to play for the GMC, and we're here to put our name next to some great champions. And this week at Maple Hill, same thing. So those are the most important things. But the Tour Championship is for a lot of money, for a lot of pride, and it's a nice way, to make a little more drama to get in or out. That's what I'll say. Jeff?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I love that the points don't drop. I don't know what that is, Terry. I love that the points don't drop. I think the issue that we have, and this might just get fixed with future technologies, is that the people that this matters to the most, we don't see. For the most part, like you said, most of the people are going to be locked in. Who did this matter for a lot this past weekend? Brody Smith, who shot up with 1.5 points. But you know what we did? We saw a scorecard because we can't have cameras everywhere. And who?
By the way, sick final round too.
Great final
Really
round.
good final
Yeah,
round.
just there's some great Statmando stats that he's like he's in the top 10 for birdies on the season. He's also in the top 10 for bogeys in the season, bogeys plus in the season.
Oh yeah, right.
So he's a young player. He's not young. He's young to the sport. So he's going to have those fluctuations. Yes. But people like him, people that are fighting to push themselves up into the bottom of this stuff, that is where these events I think matter the most. As far as a playoff scenario, the top of the team, your Dickerson, your Macbeth, your Wysocki, like you said, they're fighting to put their name next to yours on that trophy. And
yeah,
or Ricky's looking to etch his name again and again and again and again and again. But
exactly.
Now, does he keep putting his name on, or does he put slash marks? Is it just
I was going to say the little hash
Ricky
marks?
Now he just added the
he just added the sideways. Are those claw marks, or is that patented? That's a whole different discussion.
I want to add on. I want to just follow up to what you're saying, and I totally agree. And I actually didn't think about it that way. That you're right. We don't see those players, but pro side of that is we get to see them at the Tour Championship because of the way it's broken down.
Yes.
So if those players do make it in, well, then they get their time because we do cover just 4 cards. I think it's like 4 cards. Johnny, you would know more than me. Like 4 or 5 cards, per round, in
Yeah.
the Tour Championship, and we get to see those players play. Are they going to be the ones that make it to the end?
Are they this year's Nathan Queen?
Usually. Yeah. What about a Nathan Queen scenario?
Mhm.
So yeah, I totally agree with what you're saying. I mean, I agree with both of you. And I think it's okay for what Terry said, and I super agree with what Johnny said.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we look at Gavin Babcock, who's outside of the play-in. He moved down. Luke Humphreys moved out of the play-in position, and then right below both of them is Linus Carlson, who moved up 7, getting that much closer to a play-in position, as did Jake Hebenheimer. So, yeah, I mean, it's
And Mo, who was one of the people that helped design this, I mean, he said it. He was like, yeah, whatever, this year it is what it is. But is his vision in years from now to see a big player maybe drop out?
Yeah. I love that we have this play-in. I love that they're trying new things. As I'm on record saying, I really loved one of the original style formats, the win your card and move up. I know a lot of people didn't because of the cards that were moved up, and it wasn't necessarily fair that, if you might have shot a 6 and got knocked out, and the guy who shot a 5 won his card and moved on. Again, it's the champion. It depends what you're looking for in the championship scenario, but I do love that the Pro Tour isn't afraid to change things up. They're not afraid to try new scenarios with playoffs or tour finales or whatever they're doing, that they keep looking for the right scenario that provides the most excitement and drama and fan experience and player satisfaction. Try to find a happy medium there. I mean, it's close to impossible, but I think throwing a whole bunch of cash at that tour finale sure helps out.
Yeah, and somebody on the board, if I scroll up, said something about maybe the playoffs isn't the best possible word, and maybe that is something minor that's got me hung up. I don't know if playoffs is the word that I love.
Better.
I don't
like.
I don't. Yeah, because you think of the I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it
has
comes from
elimination connotation to me, as opposed to postseason, which has less of that, I think. But I agree, because I thought of that earlier too. I'm like, maybe it's just the word playoff, but I think, I don't know.
I think we're using the format of the PGA Tour. I mean, in a lot of ways. If you think about the FedEx Cup, that's a cumulative point system. Mm-hmm. The majors are worth more. The regular tour events are worth a certain amount. And then everybody makes it to the playoffs, and then they pare it down. Now, on the PGA Tour, I believe it's 3 or 4 events that they do in the playoffs. Okay. And then those all lead to the Tour Championship. And then when they get to the Tour Championship, it started off that they all started at 0, and now they're doing like a weird thing where the leader starts at 10 down, and it's a very weird system. And if you're a golf fan, you're with me on this. But I also look at how exciting it was for those players to get into the Tour Championship. And then once you get there, anybody can win. I mean, if you just look at the list of FedEx Cup champions, it's not always Tiger and Rory and the best players in the world. It's Tiger certainly has won it. Then Bill Haas wins it. Then Brent Snedeker wins it. These weren't the best players that season, but they were in the top 30, and then they performed well at that championship. They're the Tour champion. So it all leads to this one event, and then whoever wins that is considered the Tour champion.
And I think that kind of rolls into the next subject. I don't want to hammer this too much into the ground, which is, the Ricky Wysocki quote of, world champion versus what appears to be tour champion, how the world champion isn't always, and I know you guys talked about this on the broadcast, the world champion isn't always the best player of the year. And I kind of feel like he's right. We see that in every sport. The Super Bowl champions aren't always the best team in the NFL. Look, the Patriots went 16-0 or whatever, and then in the regular, or 15-1, whatever they did in the regular season, couldn't complete the season. Yeah. They lost to the Giants. Sometimes it's the least injured team that's the best team at the end who tends to win the Super Bowl. The one that didn't have their quarterback knocked out in the playoffs or something. It's not always the best team that is the world champion. And I understand where Ricky's coming from when he's talking about that. But I think that if you look at what he's saying, is that maybe you can kind of distill it. And I hope Ricky comes on because we can ask him about it. as to.
Yeah, he's going to be on any second now.
Oh,
Is
great!
he?
All right,
Oh, beautiful.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Then we can maybe distill it as, we need to pump up the tour point season better. Maybe that's a good way around it. We do hold a lot of weight in the World Championship, and I think that is, and we don't need to get into this with Ricky, but I think that's for historic reasons. People always ask, well, why does this one tournament determine, who is our quote unquote world champion? That's kind of weird and whatever. And I kind of think back, it's like, well, it's the same reason we play Tuesday to Saturday, because we haven't always been a professional sport where people were dedicated to a tour. The World Championships was like the one event everybody made it a point to go to. Not everyone went to Masters Cup. Not everyone went to the Memorial. Not everyone went down to Sarasota. Not everyone went to the East Coast for these events. It was a lot of regional and then a very few touring pros that would do that. The World Championships, it didn't matter where it was. Everybody went. You had the best of the best, and that's why it was the World Championship. And so I think that's where we're still rooted in this history. And I said the same thing about the Tuesday to Saturday, in that we were volunteers. Everyone had to get out by Sunday. No one wanted to take another day off of work. You had to give people that extra day to get out of there. That's why we played until Saturday. Because if you play until Sunday, no one gets out of there till Monday, and you have to take another day off, and it just rolls up. And we were working with what? How many PDGA staff members, Terry, started, were full-time 10 to 12 years ago? 6? 5?
No, at most it was 8 or 10, and now we're upwards of 20 or.
So I mean, we have the staff now. So I mean, we're moving towards that Wednesday to Sunday. But back in the day, when everybody was a volunteer that was coming in and spending their time, that's why it was Tuesday to Saturday. And I feel like a lot of our sport is still rooted in this history that we have to slowly kind of tear out these roots and move on. And it's going to hurt for some people, for some of the people like you and me and the older guys that look at it and be like, well, it's been that way. I don't mind that it changes, but it's just interesting.
I like what you said, Johnny, though, about the history of things. And obviously, I mean, I think we're all massive sports fans here. That's why we do this. That's why we're a part of this whole world. But I don't like comparing individual sports to team sports.
It's tough. It's a lot tougher.
I like to compare individuals to individuals. So if I was going to talk about basketball, I might compare LeBron to Ricky, or LeBron to Paul Macbeth, or somebody like that. I go to the other two massive individual sports, which is tennis and golf. And these industries are worth billions at this point. And if you look at tennis, the majors are more difficult to win. There's 7 matches over 2 weeks. A normal big event in tennis is 1 week long, and I believe you have to win 3 or 4 matches, depending on, I think, what your seed is. So, but if you win the French Open, you are the French Open champion. That is like massive. If you win the golf Masters, you are the Masters champion. That is huge. This is the format we have, is playing events and becoming a champion. That's the point. Champions in individual sports are not crowned over months or years or days or weeks. It's play these events, and whoever can win those events is the best. That's the boiled down what we do. Once you go to the season-long stuff, that's a separate topic. It's the tour champion. And tennis has that, and golf has that. And that's also a massive title to have, but it's totally separate because it's earned over time. But you ultimately, even in tennis, you play all year long. You go to the tour championship. It's only 8 people. Those people play in round robin. They play against each other. Eventually, there is a championship match. And whoever wins that is the tour champion. They're not anything else. They're the tour champion. So, I don't know. I would love to hear Ricky's more in-depth thoughts about it. But
well, we can do that because in our green room right now,
okay,
we have
green room
one. And Nate, I'll get you in this call in here in just a second. But we have one Ricky Wysocki. Ricky, welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show.
What up, Rick?
Yeah, Ricky.
Hey, what's up, guys? Can you hear me?
Hey, how you doing?
Yeah, you sound great.
Before we go any farther, I want to quickly make a full clarification. Last night, I reached out to Ari. I figured I'd go right to her about you joining tonight. She replied. I just reread it. She replied saying, we're going to the Wysocki game. I very much interpreted that
As the Red
her
Sox.
putting her own spin on her going to the Red Sox game. And now that I see Ella Hansen and a few others posting about being at the Wysocki game, a AAA affiliate of the Red Sox, I now stand fully corrected, which is why you weren't in Cincinnati, which is why you weren't at down at the Green Monster. So I take full blame for all of the miscommunication out there. But Ricky Wysocki in the house, our Green Mountain champion. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good. Yeah, I'm just spending some time. We went to, like you said, the Wysocki game. I think it was like a pro tour day over there. So we had a lot of the pro tour guys. We're out there, like you said, Matty O and Ella both threw out the first pitch. So that was pretty cool.
What?
And
Nice.
Yep. So they both did. Yeah, it was really neat. So we had a bunch of disc golfers hanging out. It was like disc golf day at the ballpark kind of deal. So it was fun.
So that's AAA, right? Is that what I
Yep.
saw?
Yeah, it's like a Silver Series for baseball.
Okay, that's a good way.
What's
That's
the
a good
Silver
way to
Series?
put it. So is that still entertaining for you? I mean, you don't go to Silver Series events. You don't got time for that.
No, it was fun. Yeah, I mean, I can't say that I watched a lot of baseball. It was more like hanging out and another disc golfer walked by and talk to them for a little bit, and then you go, and then another disc golfer walks by 5 minutes later. So it's more of just kind of socializing, hanging out, and watch a pitch here and there. So I couldn't even tell you the score when I left. So it was more just to socialize and hang out.
Well, that's perfect. Now, speaking of watching or seeing anything, all I've been seeing for the last 2 days, or not seeing, is Maple Hill and the fog on the course. What is that like? What is going on out there? Is it supposed to continue to be foggy? Because every single post on Instagram and on social media is just fog, like where you can't even see down the fairway 300 feet.
Yeah, so that was on Monday after the event, and I think that it was crazy. People were throwing like hole one over the water, and you didn't know at all where it could be in a Christmas tree, it could be in the water. You don't have any idea. And yeah, so that was crazy. I was actually in downtown Boston, so it was cool. All the skyscrapers were like cut off from the fog, like halfway up the building. So I don't think it's going to be like that the rest of the week, because today I practiced and it wasn't like that. But yeah, pretty unique conditions. I've never seen anything like that at Maple Hill.
And so just to clarify, it's about 3.5, maybe 4 hours, depending on how fast you're rolling, to get from the Green Mountain Resort or the Smuggler's Notch Resort in Green Mountain area down to Maple Hill, right? 3.5, 4 hours?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so did I see everyone roll out on Monday morning? Were there any fun zone activities Sunday night? What was going on?
Yeah, so I stayed in town, had a good breakfast on Monday, and I had my victory meal. It was actually really funny. I went to like one of the local shops in Vermont, and they had creamies, which is like soft serve ice cream mixed with maple syrup. And it's a total Vermont thing. You can only get that in Vermont. So I was telling Ari and my whole crew that I was with all week, I'm like, all right, if I win the tournament, we're all going to go out and get maple creamies, because obviously I try to eat healthy and eat clean as much as I can, but I was going to splurge. And so we went. It was like breakfast. Like we went that night, and everything was closed after the tournament. So I was like all bummed out. And then I went for breakfast the next morning. We woke up, and it was like 9:30 or something. Went to a local shop, and this lady, like, I'm like, oh, I was all pumped to get a creamy, and she's like, it was like 9:30 in the morning, and she's like, oh yeah, it's Breakfast of Champions, and she had no idea who I was or what like the disc golf tournament was going on. I'm like, oh yeah, this is really fitting. I'm Breakfast of Champions, no doubt. How'd you know? It was so random. And so yeah, the creamies was the Breakfast of Champions on Monday.
Yeah, I feel weird asking if you got your creamies, but it sounds like you did. So
yep, I did.
Good to hear.
Yeah, it was great.
So as you can see, very special. We got Nate Doss, who put an end to that little streak you previously had out at GMC. Nate Doss is in the house tonight, and we've got Johnny V. But we're going to lead right into it. We kind of talked about it already. How much conversation have you had about the umbrella
gate?
And are you in fact sick of talking about it? And so give us your take, and then maybe we can move on.
No, I'm glad you brought it up. So, I think the two things that I've basically got feedback from was the obviously the umbrella, and then the emotion. Some people were giving me like, I guess I don't know, bad feedback or something. I don't really know how to take it, but they were just, I guess, talking bad about me, like letting out emotion. So I guess I'll shed some light on both of those. So the
Okay.
first thing is the umbrella. When I threw the shot on what was that hole 14?
14. Yep.
When I hit the umbrella, when I threw the shot, I actually thought that I hit like the OB stake. I didn't know what it was. I just knew it was really close to the stake, and so I heard something when I threw it, and I was like, all right, whatever. And then I walked up there, and the spectator was like, oh yeah, you hit the umbrella or something. And I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. Like I didn't know where the umbrella was or anything. And I looked back at the video. I was like, oh wow, like I watched it a couple times. I was like thinking like, oh, trying to determine if I was gonna go OB or not. It was like I think it was like a 50-50 shot, like if I would have went OB or not. Um, but but I mean, at the end of the day, the hole would have played out way different. If I went OB, I probably maybe would have just got a 4, a bogey instead of a 5 after everything that happened on that hole. So the hole could have very likely played out completely different if I did go out of bounds and didn't hit an umbrella. So it
And
definitely was a
maybe
crazy moment in the tournament.
Yeah, and let me interject to that. Let's just play pretend you hit the umbrella, you stay out of bounds, you don't make the putt, even though you'd made every other putt from OB. But let's just say you don't make the putt. Maybe your 4, which is still a bogey, maybe it just doesn't affect you the same way the wildness of the 5 that did, right? I mean, clearly it's all we'll never know, but it would still
Yeah.
be a bogey, but it might have sat better than the double that you did take. Maybe.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it would have been a whole different mindset. I mean, it was funny. I think I seen someone say "disc don't lie" or something like this. This wanted to go be on the drive, and then it ended up going out of bounds on the putt. So
Ouch.
disc don't lie. So probably, yeah, disc didn't lie on that hole. That's for sure. I mean, sometimes it does, but not on that day it didn't.
Well, didn't want to lie down, that's for sure. So,
Yeah. No.
there's nothing you can do as you walk up. As you said, you pretty much ignored it. Doss, you called it. When you walked up, clearly somebody said, we couldn't hear it exactly, but somebody had said, oh, you probably had said you hit, the umbrella, and you're like, okay, whatever. I mean, you couldn't tell from way back there. Did you feel as if, even though you knew you thought you hit the stake, did you feel like it wasn't that great of a shot in the first place? Is that what it felt to
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm trying to throw that right gap. So a lot of people try to throw the inside gap on the left, and it's a little obviously more risky throwing the right gap that I'm throwing, but I like it because there's if you throw the correct shot, there's a nice landing zone to the right side of the basket, about 20-30 feet right, where there's no trees. You basically just throw a nice flex shot, nice and straight. Like I did the first round, I threw it to like 20 feet, and so I just like the play. I think it's for me, it fits my natural. I have a natural flex shot is my natural shot shape, and so it just fits that my eye really a lot better than the up the middle shot. And I did pull it a little bit to the right, to where it was going close to the out of bounds line, and so yeah, that's the risk you take when you start going towards out of bounds line. When you got galleries and people and umbrellas. I mean, I could have hit the umbrella and also bounced out of bounds too. It could have could have went both ways. And so yeah, it was crazy. I didn't obviously know how I hit it, or if it kept me in or out. I just knew I hit an umbrella. I didn't know if it helped me or hurt me or anything. So it wasn't like I was going into it feeling guilty, like I got away with one or something. I just went up there, couldn't see it because I was blind from the tee pad. And so I think that helped my mindset not be like, oh, I just got super lucky. Like I better capitalize on it and put too much pressure on myself or something like that. Just so my mindset was pretty good. As opposed to like the gallery that could actually see what happened.
Now, you had a veteran move, which I can really appreciate, and I think is understated for a lot of players out there that maybe either are newer or just simply don't think about it with the emotions and the moment. In that you knew when you went out of bounds on the putt that you could just take it from where you were. And I think a lot of people, you could be playing 20 years and still forget that that's an option. Did you hesitate? Did you immediately know, oh, I'm just going to throw from here again? Did you think about it for 1 second? What was going through your mind? And did you even consider going back down the hill, or was it twice as far? I guess just set up once it went out of bounds. What's everything that went through your mind?
Yeah, I mean it's a tough spot. I mean it's because as your disc is rolling out of bounds, you want to rage and you want to get pissed, and so I kind of like I wasn't like happy about it, but I like definitely like didn't get as mad as I looking back as I definitely could have. I think that's what actually helped me not get too upset and really let it affect me and for the rest of the round. And so I think that was super important. And so as soon as I saw my disc rolling towards the out of bounds, that thought popped in my head like, oh, if this goes OB, like I can just re-putt. And it's not it wasn't that tough of a putt, but once you do what I did and roll out of bounds, like that putt becomes a lot harder because you're putting for 5 and you're still 20 feet away. You just missed it, watched it roll out of bounds, and all the craziness that already happened on the hole. So there was everything was fighting against you, and so that putt just becomes that much harder. It feels like double the distance almost because of the mental battle you're fighting with yourself. There's so many things going on in your head, so you just got to focus on the mechanics, focus on what I do all the time at the practice basket, and so it's so much easier said than done. But yeah, it's I felt like I calmed the nerves as much as I possibly could and got the bad thoughts out of my head. And yeah, like I said, as it was rolling, I kind of saw it going towards out of bounds. So that pop, that thought of like, hey, I should just re-putt from here because it's way closer, and I'm putting for the same amount of strokes on the hole as I would if I went way down the hill to where I went out of bounds. I'm basically saving like 20 feet because that would have been like a 40-foot uphill putt instead of the 20 I had.
Yeah, and let's and now it looks like Johnny V's got it all queued up for us, so we can even watch it. And it's crazy because I hadn't seen it from this angle, actually, and clearly a little bit right, but man, the fact that it just popped up and immediately started rolling on you is crazy.
Yeah, no,
And then,
that green, you wouldn't think that green's not super sloped, but it's sloped enough to where if you start rolling like that can definitely happen. And yeah, it just it got on the right angle and at the wrong time and just rolled out.
so let's back up just a little bit. I know that's obviously was a very pivotal moment, but the what weren't pivotal moments were like the other 7 times you threw out of bounds and then somehow saved par. What the hell was going through your head when all these different times, including hole 1, when you're starting off with the fireworks, but all these different times when you had thrown out of bounds and then you step up and somehow you save the par anyway? How's that taxing you is maybe the best word.
Yeah, I mean it takes a lot. Every one of those putts just take a lot of mental energy to just you're already out of bounds and you basically par is the best score you can get now, and so that's it gets exhausting because you're not giving yourself a chance for a birdie, which that's our goal is to have a lot of chances at birdies, and if you're a good putter, you're going to capitalize on a lot of those and shoot good scores. And so it's not a sustainable strategy to sometimes you're as a player, all right, I can throw the aggressive shot, and if I go out of bounds, I have confidence I'm going to make the putt. But it's not like it almost seemed like that was a strategy. Like I throw it out of bounds and then make the putt. Like that's not what I was trying to do.
That's what it's.
I just, a couple shots got, grip. It was raining, and so there's just lots of, shots were a lot tougher because the conditions. It didn't have perfect grip or whatever the case may be. It's tricky in the rain, and then when it stops raining, you almost get like clammy fingers, and it almost like you get like the pruny fingers that we've all had after it's done raining. So your grip turns a little different, and so even when it's done raining, after it rains a lot and then stops, it's just your grip isn't quite the same even when the rain is done, and so. Just having a little bit of grip issues, and luckily with the putter, I wasn't having grip issues with the putter, and I knew that's how I had to score is by saving par, because you can still score that way, especially conditions when it's raining, is because pars are good when it's super torrential downpour, like it was the first 3 or 4 holes. It was raining pretty good, and so I knew that pars were good when it was raining, and I think that that kind of mentality helped me grind out those pars that I did in the beginning of the round that really allowed me to. Maintain the lead and keep the pressure on Chris, who was the next. Me and him were basically battling for most of the round, and so I think that a couple times I gained, I hit some nice par putts and actually gained strokes on Chris.
Well, and that was maybe the follow up is, do you feel like clearly you're doing your best, but do you feel like that's aggravating to other players that you're kind of like low key pissing them off when it's like, dude, this guy keeps throwing out of bounds and I'm not even picking up strokes on him. I mean, clearly that wasn't your initial game plan.
Isn't that their fault though?
It's got to be frustrating.
Like,
yeah, I mean, it's got to be frustrating though, right? When everybody thinks they're going to get a stroke on you and then you're, banging along.
Yeah, I know. For me, if I'm battling against somebody and somebody throws out of bounds, just naturally you're like, all right, I'm in bounds, they're out of bounds, so I should get a stroke. And so it definitely, like, mentally, you're like, it's very frustrating, especially the more and more it happens. But that's all the stuff that we fight through mentally every day as players. You're watching people bounce off trees, get lucky, and whether it's you earning the putt by making it or getting lucky. There's just so many variables that go on in your head. So that's all stuff as a professional that you got to fight through. If someone's throwing in shots from all over the place, well, this is what you got to deal with, and that's what you got to do. If someone's shanking shots and bouncing off trees and going straight in the basket, well, that's the set of circumstances you got to fight through if you want to win this event. So there's always new things like that, new players that are playing good. There's always going to be somebody there, and so for me, that's what I know. Like, it's never going to be easy, and you're never almost never going to coast to a win. And and as much as that's, as a player, we're in it to take the drama out, to dominate that we want to dominate the media. Yeah, obviously you want close tournaments and people battling back and forth, long putts, long drives and, all that stuff. But as a player, our goal is to take the drama out. And that's the highest chance you have to win, is because you allow yourself to have a bad break here and there and still win, versus if you're battling and have a bad break down the stretch. Like that rollaway putt could have cost me the tournament. And so that's, I guess the biggest thing is, as a player, is just the mental side is so different every tournament. And that's the beauty of being a professional, is you never know what you're going to get. And so, week in and week out, it's the best players that handle that mental battle with themselves and the circumstances that are happening.
Did all of that lead up to, is all of that building and comes out on 18 after the drive? Because I don't know if I've ever seen anyone on the fairway on a final hole react like that. Is this one of the biggest reactions you've ever had on a drive? Like, yeah. I can't count, even for world championships. I don't think I've ever seen anyone react like this.
Yeah, no. So for me, it was definitely just all of my emotions came out, because the way I look at it is, obviously in the moment, me and Chris were tied going into that hole. So it's basically nothing else matters. This hole 18 is, it's a, I think it's one of the hardest driving holes on the whole course, and the whole tournament came down to it. And once he threw out of bounds, I basically knew that, hey, my one goal is to throw inbounds. If I can throw inbounds, the tournament is over. It's no different than if I were to hit a 30 or 40 footer, I would have had that same celebration, because I'm just excited that that's the moment that I was working for all week, to practice and all year to, give myself a chance to win. And I'm capitalizing on it. That's amazing. And so, and for me, on top of that, it was all the, the rollaway and the bad luck that I fought through, and all this other stuff that was, going on in my head, that I would dropped all that and just executed that shot, which is the biggest shot in the tournament, to get the win. And so I got excited, because like I would if I hit a 40-footer for the win. The tournament was pretty much over at that point, because, with Chris going out of bounds, on that hole situationally, if you go out of bounds on that hole, as Nate knows, that, you're basically 40, 50 feet off the tee, and you're not getting up and down from there. And I was, 250 feet away from the basket. I could have got a 3 if I had to, but I was obviously just going to play for par. So once I threw that shot in bounds, the tournament was basically over. And so that's when I knew the moment that I won. And so that's really
some people. Yeah, and I clearly that makes all perfect sense. So as you're saying, some people may have been a little bit critical of you, maybe digging into the idea or scratching the surface of feeling like that's a little pre-celebratory, or that I'll go as far as saying maybe even unsportsmanlike. And you're celebrating your moment, and all that excitement is all built up and is releasing. And I'm guessing what the critics are saying is, hey, that also felt a little disrespectful to Chris. Is that a fair assessment? Is that what you think people are then getting at? Maybe even though that I'm guessing that's not your intention, but is that how people are perceiving it?
I mean, even if it's accidental.
Yeah, sure.
With that emotion.
Yeah.
So could you understand
yeah,
that perspective if that's what the angle people have? That might be frustrating.
Yeah, and I can see that. And I can, I've been on the other side of that, where I've been in, Chris beat me at Champions Cup. We were battling, and that's how, if you're at the top of your sport, you're gonna win some, you're gonna lose some, and yeah, I maybe, looking back at it, maybe I did go a little overboard, but that was just, I think, so much built up that it's not, that's not my reaction every time. It's just, with everything that happened, the roll away, Chris coming back, and just the momentum shift, and so it all just built up. And I knew that shot was super important. And I think at the end of the day, once Chris threw out of bounds, and he knew his tournament was over. And so, until after I threw. So once he threw out of bounds and I threw inbounds, the tournament was over. In Chris's head, it's done. So me celebrating, it's no really, at the end of the day, it's no different than, like I said, making that 30-footer, because nobody is getting, up and down from where he threw. He literally was almost essentially re-teeing at that point because of the way the out of bounds was placed. And so once he threw out and I threw inbounds, the tournament was over. You just basically had to go through the motions and finish it out.
Yeah,
and so I think,
as I say, it's really interesting because we see that type of emotion on the green when someone hits a big putt for the win. You've done it. I mean, Chris has done it. We've seen epic Macbeths at USDGC, those cheers. It feels more natural when, like, the disc is done and you put it in. It was really different to see, because you're right. That was your winning shot. Period. Like that's where the tournament, quote unquote, ended for almost everybody. And so it sounds more natural when you say it like that, as opposed to, oh, this dude was celebrating on the 18th tee in front of his competitor. So, but I agree with you. I love the natural reaction. I love the excitement. I do understand what other people could take out of it. I don't agree with it, but it's a feeling.
And at the end of the day, as an athlete, I'm never. Yeah, go ahead, Terry.
I was just gonna say, again, another woulda, coulda, shoulda game. Chris puts it in bounds, somewhere in bounds. You throw that exact same shot. You're in bounds. How do you feel? Like, are you still as pumped with that reaction?
No, absolutely not.
That's what you need to continue.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. The tournament's still the tournament is still live. We still have to finish. Like, sure. I would not even. It's not over at all. Like, there's nothing. Like, it would have been totally different. I would just walk down the fairway. There's nothing done about the tournament. It's not over. Not even close to over. We're both in bounds. But I'm laying 2 in the middle of the fairway. He's laying 3 basically right off the tee pad, having to lay up again to then go for the basket. Yeah. So it just played out. Just the way it played out. Is why. And as an athlete, a hole and how holes play out. So that's, obviously we know better than anybody, what we're trying to do, where we're trying to land, and how holes are playing out. And at the end of the day, it's like, as an athlete, I'm never, like, if it was flipped around and Chris did that, I'm never mad at him. I'm always mad at myself. Never. Like, it doesn't matter who it is. If I mess up a shot and, I'm not going to, because I know people are like, oh, it's disrespectful to Chris. But it's like, Chris, in my opinion, I think Chris is probably just mad about his shot, not executing his shot. He's not going to ever be mad at me. Yeah, if it's flipped around, I'm never going to be mad at the person that did execute the shot. It's just me. It all boils down to me. I didn't do it, or I did do it, and I executed it, and so that was my emotion. And
what if?
Yeah, I'm not going to.
What if you were not last on the tee? What if you were not last on the tee? I mean, what if Chris teed first through OB, you were second, and you reacted that way, and other people had to putt. I mean, or to tee. Sure. Think about it on the green. Even if you make that 40-footer, and say everybody else is inside you, yes, you react. You go get the disc out of the basket, celebrate. But other people still have to putt. See, other people's tournament are still on the line. I mean, think about even Dickerson having to play hole 18. He was still fighting to maybe take solo second place. And Ricky, by the way, I want to say, I don't have a problem with the emotion coming out. I just wonder how you feel if you reacted that way if you were, say, second on the tee, because the tournament's not just between you and Chris.
For sure, yeah, no, and you're totally right. It's something to where, yeah, I mean, if that was the case, I feel like in the moment I would be respectful if someone had to still tee off, or like you said, still putt. But since I was the last one, I was kind of running down the fairway because we're gonna have to go down the fairway anyway, and so that's kind of why I started running, because I knew I was the last one down, and started obviously like fist pumping and yelling.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's
To be
there's
fair, that's
definitely
not
that
much
side.
slower than you move down the fairway anyway.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for
You're
sure.
always
You're always out in the lead there, buddy.
Yeah. But yes, maybe I was a little over the top, and it's something to where, it was just, I guess I'm not used to being in that spot. Like you said, that it was such a, unique way to finish a tournament, and the way it played out. Yeah, you're right. There's always other people playing, and you have to be respectful of them. But it's also, for me, it's like, you're always feeding off the crowd, and the crowd, so it's like, for me, I feel energy a lot, and I felt like, the crowd, just really pumped me up and wanted me to, I just felt the build up moment for that was just when I wanted to erupt, really.
Nobody yells at James Conrad for running down the fairway after the holy shot.
Yeah, I mean, gosh.
Right.
Well, he had to get his
Yeah,
disc out of the basket.
Yeah, right.
He had 30 seconds. I mean, somebody was over there with a stopwatch on the side.
Now, again,
Right.
Rick, we understand, and it's fair to say, this, of course, everyone has their favorites, and so if you're a bigger fan of another player, it's probably easier to criticize you. If you're
100%.
when your biggest fans are saying yes, you're fully emotional and you should be.
Right.
It's all part of the game. That's why we're playing. You're not only
And-
playing to win, but those are the moments that you live for, and I can understand the raw emotion. Now had you turned around to Chris and given him the double, that would have been a little different.
Yeah, or everything.
Yeah.
I love that Ricky did have that emotion, but you also realized it right away when you realized that you had run past Chris's disc. You made the immediate correction, came to the side of the fairway, came back up. I mean, Ricky, I think you handled everything perfectly, and I think that you've explained it in a absolute perfect way. It's impossible for emotion to not come out in that moment. Would you have done things different? Maybe. But look, I think you did the perfect thing. We're watching it right here. So I think you did a great job.
And
So,
I appreciate it.
What does it
at the
mean?
end, like I said, if a player came up to me and said, "Hey, like, and I really like," if they expressed like, "Hey, Matty O or Isaac," and that really like affected them, then I would obviously like, "Hey, like, all right, next time I won't do that." Like, if it really affected them, and like you said, because they still have to play out their tournament and finish the best they can. So I want to respect that. So I'm not doing it to be detrimental to them. So if I will definitely, reflect on that and try to be better next time if I get myself in that situation.
And it's kind of funny because we all know Chris doesn't care
Yeah.
about third place. Chris doesn't care about fourth place, second place.
Nobody
Chris cares about the win, which is why we saw him on his third shot, like throw that crazy forehand that went out of bounds or whatever, because he was running the basket and just got out of control. And but you're right. If somebody else were to do something like that, it's different for every particular player. Let's real quick talk about, Ricky, the playoffs. Did the playoff scenario here, the DGBT playoffs, does that matter to you particularly in this event? Does it mean anything? Because you're already up at the top. The points kind of, I hate to say it, like, whose line is anyway, but the points don't matter. You're here to win. Was that in your head at all?
He's overtaken Macbeth because of this weekend.
Yeah,
correct. So yeah, the question still stands. So go ahead, but yeah, you overtook Macbeth. You got 125 points. He got 80, and now you're in front of him. That's a 45-point difference, and you're ahead of him by 23 now. So go ahead and answer the question. With that.
Yeah.
in mind,
So
maybe.
Obviously, the thing is, our events. And that's kind of like, I heard you guys talking about the Worlds thing. I think nowadays, every event is so big, and there's pretty much the best players in the world are at every event.
Mhm.
And it used to be like what Nate and you guys were talking about, all the best players from Europe and all the best players from whatever country that they wanted to represent their country and go to the world championships. Players do that now, but they do that at every event. They don't just do it at the worlds. So every event is essentially like a world championship was, five or 10 years ago. And so the fact that every event is big, and all the best players are basically at the event, it basically is like a world championship caliber event every weekend. And so with that comes, you wanting to win obviously as a top player, but you also want to have good finishes at events to play strategically and win points titles and set yourself up for the Pro Tour championship and finale. And so I think it's, for me, there's a lot of, pretty much every event is really, there's a lot that comes along with it because you know how hard it is, and you see the fields that are there, and you see that there's so many people trying to win, and the touring community is huge now, and so I think that what I'm trying to say is just every tournament is just so big, and the best players are at every event, and so it's and it's Nate used tennis, I heard earlier. Tennis, they have a point system where they pick their basically 4 or 5 biggest majors, and then the I think it's, I don't know what they classify it as, but they don't actually have like a world
tour championship.
Yeah, they do accumulation of like points based on the 4 or 5 majors that they have, and then that, whoever wins out of that basically is the winner of the world championship or something. Is that how it goes, Nate? Something like that?
Yeah, I mean it is, and what I was trying to differentiate is that there's the difference between being the champion of a tournament and being the tour champion, and I think they're both very valid. I think, and I totally agree with what you're saying. Disc golf is inside the ropes as far as the play on the course. We're playing a lot of the same courses that we were just 4 or 5 years ago, but the players are better. But and the depth of the field is incredible. But on the PGA Tour, it is also like a Masters every weekend. It is, and it's like a U.S. Open every weekend, but it's that event, and you become the champion of that event. So I'm trying to differentiate becoming the champion of the World Championship and being the tour champion, which I think is a different skill in its own right, which is consistency over 20 events, right? And has there been a lot of weird Masters champions? Absolutely. Has there been a lot of Masters champions that are the best in the world? Absolutely. But has over the Tour Championship, only the best players get to play in that Tour Championship, unlike the World Championship, which is 200 players deep and is the biggest and most difficult test that we have in our sport. How you've had time to reflect on your comments from last week.
Yeah.
I mean, are you still dead set in what you said that day? I'm just curious.
Yeah. So basically, it's, for me, it's that's really the point that I was trying to make, that I maybe didn't get my point across the best, was that titles, the difference between, like, I guess, winning like a world championship and winning, like, let's say Waco or something. 5 years ago, there's a huge difference there. Is like, it's meant so much more to win a worlds, and the worlds, obviously it means more than anything to win, and that's amazing, and that's the best pinnacle of our sport. But what it feels like to win Waco versus Texas State's nowadays is that there is probably just as strong of a field in Waco as there was at the World Championships. So the gap there, as far as how you respect a winner from Waco versus a world champion, isn't that much different. Like, if you win on the Elite Series, people respect you. You're a great player. No, and people just know that because they know and respect you differently because they know how hard it is to win on tour. Like you said with the PGA Tour, every event, has these huge, massive fields of the greatest golfers on the planet, and so I think that that is the biggest takeaway for me, is just the titles nowadays are so much more equal as opposed to back in the day, I guess.
Yeah, it's funny because
Yeah,
I think part of the events and the names that we put on the events is the pressure. USDGC,
Yes.
Worlds, You know, the European Open, the Japan Open. These are the events, just the names now bring the pressure, as opposed to what used to be the competition that brought the pressure. And the fact that we don't play 9 rounds anymore, which was different in Worlds, and that was another reason it was World Championships. It was the marathon golf. It was the one that showed, not only do I have the stamina, but I've got the consistency. I've got all these stats against all these players. We're in a different world now. It's a 5-round event, which really isn't that much different than a 4-round event. You know, all the players now have the strength and conditioning of a pro athlete for the most part. We now are looking at these events, and like I said, it's the event itself that rotates and puts the pressure on. Because you're right, the fields, you're getting the same top 20 players that you're, again, in every event. Every event, you're probably, you know, give or take a week off for somebody, you're getting the same 20 players, and that are going to push you or whomever, or maybe, you know,
I want to throw out a for instance.
Go for it,
I
Nate.
want to throw out just a for instance.
I think a 3-time world champion gets to do that.
I just want to throw out a for instance, Ricky. So in a couple of weeks, you're going to be in Rock Hill. Now you're going to play in the USDGC. This is a tournament you've never won before. And also the Tour Championship is never a singular event that you've never won before. Now you've been the points champion, of course, because of your consistency and great play. If you go on to win the USDGC, are you going to be thinking, okay, this is just my step to next weekend? Or are you going to say, wow, this is one of the greatest achievements of my entire career, an event that has eluded me my entire career? Or are you going to be thinking, wow, this is pretty cool, but that next weekend, that Tour Championship, that's the one I want? I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, so for me, it's, you know, I reflect on a season based on how I played in each event. You know, obviously, there's going to be events that feel bigger than others, but when you look back on a season, and I use this for an example, if I won every tournament but didn't win the Worlds, I had a great season. I'm obviously I'm more than pumped, you know, and you could say that about if the person that won the World Championship, they're pumped too because they won the tournament, you know. So there's multiple different ways to have a great season and be, you know, put your name in the hat for being the best player in the world. You know, if you win every Elite Series and someone else wins, you know, 2 or 3 majors, you know, it's who, you know, because the majors do, you know, they have more weight and they have the name and they have the field strength. But you also have to value the consistency of the biggest events that we have on our tour, the Elite Series also. And so I think that the value of certain tournament titles have gone up. I think, you know, the Ledgestones, the Green Mountain Championships, the Las Vegas Challenge, those events. So for me, I look back and I'll say, you know, I had a great season overall, and I'm really happy with how I performed and how I played, and I felt like I capitalized on a lot of opportunities and chances I had to win. For me, it's, you know, obviously GMC and, you know, Texas States and a couple of the other events that I've won. I look back and say, yes, I'm really happy with how I closed out that tournament, gave myself a chance to win, and I won. And so that's, you know, I felt like I was the best player in the world in 2022. That's the way I look at a season. And that's kind of, I think, where my comment with the World Championships comes, is that, you know, if I win the World Championships, I am pumped that I won the Worlds, but that's just one step for being the best player of the year. I just feel like, for me as a player, I want to be the best player as a whole season long. I don't want to be a best player of that one tournament. And of course, sometimes that means winning the Worlds is one step in the right direction of becoming the best player of the year. And so that's kind of how I look at it.
No, I love that clarification, and I just think I think it's beautiful. I think it's beautiful to hear your perspective on it. I could throw out a lot of more for instances, but I really appreciate you breaking that down.
So Ricky,
as I'm looking at,
Ricky, real quick question: how do we make the tour, in your opinion, the tour season, the championship? I don't want to just say the tour finale because that's just one event as well. But how do we promote the tour as a whole to be more prestigious? Because again, you've won what, four or 5 events on the tour, and you're clearly having what is arguably the best season of the year. for all players. You've dominated, for the most part, a lot of these Elite Series, or they're not Elite Series events. How do we make this more prestigious? Is that a player thing where you need to celebrate it more? Is that a media thing where we need to pump it up more? How do we convince the fans that, hey, this is, for some people, bigger than Worlds, or as big, or it's a big deal? How do we push that out to the world?
Well, I think they are. The Pro Tour is, with Nate doing the commentary and the people watching, he can offer the insight and just his knowledge on the course and the history of the event. All that stuff helps so much to paint the picture for the viewer. And then they're like, oh, this tournament's been around and for this long, and it just kind of builds that history. And then the more you see that event, also builds the brand of the event. So yeah, I mean, next year I may not win the GMC, but I helped grow the brand of the GMC. I helped use my platform and my brand to grow the Pro Tours brand. So that's why I feel like, I'm beyond thankful that I can have a brand and have a following that helps grow the sport as a whole too. It's obviously helping me, but it's also helping the sport and pave the way for the person next year that, like, oh yeah, the GMC, I remember Chris and Ricky got in a battle, and then maybe it's next year Gannon and Anthony Barella, and they got in a battle. And so it just each year builds off of each other. And I think the Pro Tour is doing a great job on building that part, because we're having consistent tour stops, great venues, and tour stops that people want to watch. And I think that's super important. So I think they're doing it just naturally on its own. I think that's, obviously a great way to do it. And so I think that, I haven't spent too much thought on it, but that's my first thought on it.
Let me follow up and say, right now, you have 4, and it's funny how this even can come into play, but you have 4 Player of the Years that have been awarded to you through the PDGA, which has in essence an similar but yet different set of criteria to arrive at that at one point was very much more subjective, where people were voting on it more so. But anyway, you have 4 of those. Right now, you have 4 Elite Series events this year that are already, in your back pocket, including this last weekend. Does something like PDGA Player of the Year, are you thinking about that? Or is it exclusively Disc Golf Pro Tour Champion? I mean, where do you put Player of the Year, and by whose award? Because I guarantee you next week some other website and some other rankings is going to come up, and they're going to also make you player of people that are 6 feet tall and their last name in a Y. Whatever.
DG rankings.
We always,
right.
Yeah, everybody's got a new rankings is really my facetious
Yeah.
point there. But the short question is, how much do you care about PDGA Player of the Year?
I think it definitely means something. It's an award that you can look back on and say, hey, I was the Player of the Year in 2022, and I'm sure Nate thinks the same thing, and he's probably got multiple of those as well. You can look back and within that year you're like, oh yeah, this year I won, Ricky won GMC, and it kind of sets a precedence in history in the sport. Like, you're the best Player of the Year in 2022, and so yeah, I want to win the points title. I want to win all these titles. And I know that each event that I win is a stepping stone in that direction to winning that stuff. And so that's why it means so much to me to do that, because for me, that's really, as an athlete, everyone's different. Some people are, hey, I can just show up and win, 1 or 2 tournaments and I've had a successful season. And, if you just pick, and obviously I'm trying to win, USDGC and the Worlds. Those are the events in our sport right now, the European Open and the Champions Cup. So the fact that we have those events that allow us players to feel like that extra added pressure, because that title means more, and it means more for points. It means maybe because the majors are weighted more in point total for the standings and all the other stuff that come along with that. So yeah, the points is cool, and I'm sure there's a payout now where there maybe never used to be in the past. Obviously bonus money. And just the fact that you're consistent, and nowadays that means a lot, because there's so many players now that are playing at a high level that if you can have salvage a top 5 finish even when your game's maybe not at its best, that means something as a player, and so there's always something to play for, and so I guess to answer your question, the tour finale is also a great format. I love it. I've in the past just not played very good. But I think it's great that players like Nathan Queen, Kevin Jones, all these players, they've made history and they've won the tour championship. So it's the last event we have. So that's kind of the last impression you can make on the disc golf world before you go into the next season. So that adds that little bit extra pressure also, and it kind of feels like a major. Is the Pro Tour finale? It kind of does. It feels like, I guess, the DGPT's version of a major, and so I think that we're stepping a lot in the right direction in a lot of ways, and I think my biggest comment is that people, I don't think the general public realize that the how close, like, just regular events, how close the fields are between a D-Glow, a Ledgestone, how close the fields are to the worlds. And that's really my point, is that I think the general public perceive that, like, hey, the world championships, yeah, it means the most, but the other events still are like right there with it as far as the
Super
field
competitive.
strength. Yeah, super competitive. So I think that is the biggest miscommunication that I'm trying to get across to the fans, is that every event is tough, no matter which way you look at it. And so,
Yeah.
and that's basically what I'm trying to say.
I like it.
Yeah, so what does it mean to you when we look at like the PDGA stats right now? You're a few dollars short of 67,000. I think I saw whether it was 77 or 87,000 your previous career high. What do earnings money mean? What does it mean now? Because you're clearly guaranteed a large contract. That's obviously been pretty public. A helicopter told me so. But you're guaranteed this significant contract. But what does it mean when we're talking about a $70,000 year, or an $80,000 or $100,000 year? Kind of put that in perspective for everybody. I mean, there's a lot of money to still be won in the next month. I mean, there's a lot of money on the line.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, so it's not like, that stuff's kind of like a result of, of winning the tournament. It's not like I'm playing, I have the chance to win $20,000 this week. To be honest, I really don't even look at the payout until after the event, because it's not going to change. Like, oh, this tournament's only worth 10,000. I was hoping it was going to be, 15,000 if I won. Like, of course, I want it to be as good as possible, but each event, you have each course is different. There's so many different variables and so many things to focus on for that week that, I'm not really focused on the payout. And for me, yeah, and I know that I'm going to get paid if I play to the best of my ability, and everything is fully optimized. My play, my mental game, my health, and everything is optimized that week. I'm going to have to give myself a chance to win, and that's week in and week out what I need to do to be the best player in the world. And so all that stuff is just a result. It's not like I'm focusing too much on it. I'm just playing week in and week out. Sometimes my game feels, and that's just how, sports are. You can, your putt feels great one week and maybe it's just a little bit off the next week, or your drive feels great. So you're always fighting these little battles with yourself. And so that's why sometimes it clicks, sometimes it doesn't. So you're just trying to find a way to just make your game feel great consistently. And that's, your game's, and that's the hardest part, because your game's always evolving, always changing, new courses, all these different set of variables coming at you. And so I think that's why, for me, being consistent, and trying to be consistent at the top means so much to me as a whole in a season, as opposed to, maybe just one event. And so, yeah, that's my thought on that.
Okay.
What do you say to like an event, especially to like your fans, like Des Moines? I mean, that was so surprising to us. I mean, just to me, being your friend and longtime supporter, like what was that week for you in Des Moines?
Yeah, so Des Moines was a tough week. I mean, it was just one of those weeks where, I felt like I was doing everything I normally do. My putt just felt that little bit off. My putting wasn't good. My mental game really that was the biggest thing. I kind of felt like I was looking ahead to Worlds before I was even done with the Des Moines Challenge, and But at the end of the day, it's a huge event. Like, it was a really big event, and it was awesome to see Simon and Robert, go at it head to head. That was so cool, to see that. And I respect winners, because I know what it takes to win. You obviously have that respect for them because you know how hard it is. And so it was awesome to see Robert and Simon battle like they did, head to head. That's what we live for as, athletes. We want to give ourselves that chance to win, and to see them, making those long putts and pushing it to the next hole. It was, I basically just turned into a spectator because I didn't have what it takes that week. And my tournament was over, and it was like it was mostly mental for me. I was just kind of looking forward to Worlds, prematurely, and forgot about the task at hand, and missed the cut. And this day and age, if that happens, it can happen because there's so many players that are playing good that the cut lines are 10, 12 under sometimes by the time the weekend's over, which is, I think that's awesome because you have storylines in itself, like, hey, me or Paul or Eagle, they're battling to make the cut, and so that, that stuff can happen, even in golf. It's kind of like turning into golf, in Tiger Woods, when there's years where he's the best player in the world, there's years where he also missed the cut because that's how the game is that there's so many people that are playing at a high level that makes the cut line just rise up. And that's what's happening in disc golf.
Yeah, it's been so rare, obviously, because someone like you, who has been such a dominant force, it becomes newsworthy. Unfortunately, for you, it becomes newsworthy. Again, Paul at DDO, yourself, and then real quick, I guess I'll take a quick tangent. You're good friends with Katrina. You're good friends with Paige. Do you make anything of the missed cut there by Kat and the near missed cut? I mean, without being disrespectful to Paige, it was almost just the same as if she had missed the cut.
She was on the cut line.
She literally made the last putt. She gets in. She then doesn't have, a Paige-like performance on the final day and shoot up 20, or 10 spots like, she's capable of. She just barely hovered around. So whether she made the cut or not, it almost feels negligible. I guess my question to you is, when you see someone like, Kat and Paige on the FPO side, very different world, but dominant players, the most dominant in the game for the last 10 years. Just a quick take on that, since you know them both so well.
Yeah.
Do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, for sure. And it's very similar in FPO now. There's lots of new talent and players, taking their games to the next level because there's kind of a shift in sports. There's, if as a top player, the next generation of players, the Tom Brady's and the, Aaron Rodgers, that's kind of like in a generation. And then you got the new generation of like the Mahomes and the Justin Herberts, and they're kind of cycling into their prime. And so there's always that next shift of athletes. And as a top player, you have to keep up with the shift. As, whether in disc golf, maybe it's throwing 550 in, 550-foot backhands and 450-foot sidearms, making all your 30-footers. Like, just, each sport has their own, set of what it takes to become a top player or to be a top player. So there's different shifts, and there's shifts happening in MPO, shifts happening in FPO because the sport's getting bigger, more people are getting involved. So that's causing the shifts, and it's shifting some people out and new people in. And obviously players like me and Paul and Eagle, we've kept up with that shift, and there's going to continuously be a shift, and eventually, obviously I'm going to take care of myself and try to play as long as I can, but eventually I'm going to get shifted out of the sport, and there's going to be a new generation coming in. But for as far as Paige and Kat, I think they'll be fine. I think that it's something to where it sounds worse than it is, but it's at the end of the day because the field's gotten better, and they may have played to that level a couple years ago and made the cut and maybe got 10th place or whatever, but now they play to that same level and they don't even make the cut, or they barely make the cut. Now it's like way different because those players that don't normally beat them have now elevated their game. So Paige, she plays to her floor, and someone else plays just a little bit better than her, then they end up beating her by a stroke or two and pushing her off the cut line. And so that's something, like you said, I like the variable and the element of a cut line now because it adds more drama for one, and it adds more storylines, and it also adds something for the players to shoot for. If you're not shooting well, you have to really pay attention and grind. Even if you're not grinding to win, you got to grind to make the cut to get points, or and so it just kind of gives you that psychological mental battle with yourself to like, hey, I got to make this birdie on the next 2 holes to make the cut line. So I think that's a cool element that we got going in our sport, and I would like to see more of that going. And I think that, as a player, I think players would also be all in for it because you feel accomplished when you make the cut, and you feel like, all right, cool, like I made it, I deserve, to play the next day. It's not just like, someone in 150th place is playing even though they got nothing to play for,
So
I was gonna say, speaking of cuts.
yeah,
Are you going there?
72-ish people playing this weekend in MPO, one of the smaller fields, which also means because it's the playoffs, because it's, rankings and everything
Not
else,
small
means
enough.
it's going to be one of the most competitive fields we've ever seen. I mean, we always talk about how tough it is to cash and do well at Beaver State Fling because they, have a limited amount in the ratings and so on. But 70-some people, 76 MPOs, and they're going to cut down to 40%, which is 28-ish, 20-some, 30-some, whatever. There's some throats on the line this weekend. I mean, 3 rounds at Maple Hill. Talk about what that means. You could go from winning to possibly just being outside of the cut this weekend if you're not on, right?
Yeah, for sure. And that's, I love that. I think that, whether, I get cut or not, obviously I'm going to be playing my best and doing whatever I can to give myself another chance to win. I love it. I think it's great. It's a unique format. And I know last week there was some good players that missed the cut. And I think that, it really is crazy, the shift that's going on with the amount of players that are playing at a high level. And that's crazy that 3 rounds at Maple Hill, and then 30 players or whatever, 30 or 40 players are moving on to the final round. But I think that when you do stuff like that, it just makes you feel accomplished. And there's always obviously the storyline for who's winning the tournament, but then from a DGN standpoint, hey, if me or Paul or some of the big names are in 40th place and we're having a putt on the last hole to make the cut, to then that's a big storyline because if we make the cut, we have the firepower to shoot back up the leaderboard and maybe gain a bunch of points to save our spot in the Pro Tour finale. And so that actually affects the next tournament if someone makes the semifinals. So that storyline is big because it affects future tournaments as well, like it does when we go to Charlotte. If that person misses the cut versus if they make the cut and then now they go up another 10 or 20 spots and gain a bunch more points, it adds that much more drama and it means that much more in the event and in the overall Pro Tour finale point system. So I love it. I think it's going to be exciting for the players, but I also think it's going to be an exciting element for the viewers understanding how important points and stuff are for the finale.
Okay, Ricky, I have a question for you then. This is put your prognosticator hat on. How many strokes between first place and the cut line at MVP?
That's a great question. So
I know.
Let's see here. So it's only 3 rounds, right?
Yeah, you should
3 rounds?
You should do this for a living. You're so smart, John.
Yeah.
So,
3 rounds.
Yeah, 3 rounds.
So 3 rounds. After 3 rounds, the leader will be at 25 under probably. That's my guess. So I think after and then the cut line will be to Maple Hill's hard course. So I think the cut line will probably be 7 or 8 under. I think is what it'll be.
Okay, so basically about 12 to 13 strokes.
As I say, just over 10.
Yep.
Rick.
Yeah. So I think 7. I think 7 or 8 under for the cut line, 25 under for the leader, and then we'll maybe do a tweet or something, and we'll see how far I am off. What's your guess?
I was going to say
we'll
10
have to
under.
Look into Nate Sexton's crystal ball.
Yeah, we need Nate Sexton's crystal ball, but I was going to go right about 10 under. I think 10 under will probably be the cut. If you're below 10, you're probably not making the cut. If you're above 10 or better than 10, you're going to make the cut. That's my guess.
I think it's gonna be lower than you think though, because Maple Hill's a really tough is a hard course. It's tough. I mean, you might
guys
have
are getting
people
so
that
damn
shoot.
good. You guys are getting so good.
I know, yeah. We are, but but I think Maple Hill is a lot harder than it's a lot harder than Brewster. There's much more danger and much more punishment for bad shots, and Maple Hill is hard to. It's hard to it's hard to go 10, 12 under for multiple rounds. You may do it one round, shoot 10 under, and then follow it up with like a 5 or a 6. It's hard to really shred and like the leaders don't normally get to 40 under at Maple Hill through 4 rounds. If you get to low 30s, high 20s, that's great.
Yeah,
most of the
Rick,
time. So
the way that you played the GMC, from my perspective, was you really took it to that course. I mean, you played overstable plastic. You really were aggressive, and you were willing to go out of bounds because you were going to play that really aggressive shot. In your estimation, once you come to Maple Hill, do you play it still that aggressive, sort of overstable line, or do you play it with a little more finesse at this course? Is there more late turns? How do you make that quick adjustment coming down from Vermont?
yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think that out in Maple Hill, a Fox run, it's like you said, you can play the overstable disc, and if you go out of bounds, you don't, you still have a par putt, and you can save a lot of pars, like what I was doing in the final round. But Maple Hill, you're actually, if you're missing shots, you're almost worse than out of bounds because you're kicking into spots where, I mean, you're pars at best, very likely a bogey.
Yeah.
So sometimes you're worse off being in Maple Hill. If you get into some certain spots, you're worse off being safe in a worse spot as opposed to being out of bounds, and you get to take your drop and potentially just get an easy up and down for a par. So Maple Hill can be really punishing. So yeah, I'm throwing slower discs, mid ranges off the tees on some of the holes if I can. But I'm not making too many adjustments because you still have to attack the course and throw the speed of disc to reach the shots. Even if it's a 450-foot shot and you want to throw a mid range, but you're not necessarily going to get a putt at it, you still have to take that risk. So there's times where I'm definitely going to still take risk, and we're know deep down that I'm going to be relying on my scramble game. If and when I do get a kick, eventually it's going to happen out there. It's not if, it's when. And just being ready for that. I think that's the important part. And that's something I'm working on a lot, is perspective. It's a lot easier to walk up to a 25, 30-foot birdie putt and be all pumped and try and make that. But you walk up to that 25, 30-foot par putt after hitting early and bouncing into the crap, you're like all kind of pissed off, like, oh, I'm putt for par. But like on courses like that, it's all about perspective and treating that putt the same as you would a birdie putt. And so that's something I did really well last week at GMC, is those par putts are just as important to keeping your round going as a 25-foot birdie putt. And so that's mindset is going to be what I want to carry over and hopefully apply to Maple Hill.
Yeah, that was super apparent because honestly, I really felt like the par putts you made. I mean, even that first round when you made that like 70 or 80-foot par putt on like 7, I think it was.
Yeah,
I mean, that really jump started you. So I think what you're saying you're actually doing. I think that perspective is really, really critical.
For sure. And like as a player, it's if you making par putts in scrambling and saving pars is a momentum saver. It saves your round. It keeps your round going. Obviously on the scorecard, but also mentally, because you didn't lose any strokes. You didn't give strokes away. So that just it just allows you to play a lot more, not with the mental roller coaster. Oh, bogey. Oh, no. But if you just get birdie, par, par, birdie. The mental side is so much more flatlined, and it's so much more sustainable to shooting consistently. And I think that's just super important, is to be under control mentally. And I think that's something we're always working as people, as athletes. And I think that's something, just trying to implement strategies to optimize that.
Holy cow. We're going to cheers to this, Rick. You can't. We will. We'll do the
I'm
work
out.
for you. You're doing work. I wanted to go look at it. I was going to quiz you with how many times you've won at Maple Hill, but in my incredible research department, aided here by my beverage,
Right here.
you just won the largest paycheck. You tied for the largest paycheck ever for yourself with PDGA earnings this last weekend. Did you know that?
No, I did not. That's crazy. It was, what was it, 12,000, right?
Yeah, I know.
So you won
Do you
12
even sign
grand
the
at the
checks?
Worlds.
No, you don't. You don't get checks anymore. They just go into your PayPal.
So
No, they go right to
Ari,
PayPal.
and Ari's like, no, damn it, Terry. I told him you only won 9. No, you
Right.
won 12. You won $12,000, which honestly I hadn't looked at before this. 12
Yeah, no,
grand, tying your largest payout ever, which was your 2017 World Championships, your second Worlds, which was also 12 grand. So that is your largest check of your career. I will drink to that. Congrats.
thank you. That's
What do you make
amazing.
of that?
I mean, th- I mean, it kind of goes back to what I was saying, is that the payouts are obviously getting amazing, and I think that's because it's awesome because I know players know how hard it is to win, and so you really get rewarded, and it's life changing. I mean, it gives you, obviously brand presence. It gives you you build followers and fans, and people feel like they're a part of something when you win, and obviously representing sponsors well, all that stuff. So when people win, it's at this day and age in our sport, if you win a tournament, it changes your life. It can Isaac winning Idlewild. That's awesome. I love to see that. He's a great player, dedicating his life
Maybe
to
you
disc
should
golf.
let them win more then.
It's
Yeah. You're
yeah,
such
right.
a hog.
Well,
You're such a
well,
jerk.
yeah. I mean, I can't help that. I'm a little selfish.
Can't
when it
help
comes out. I
that.
wanna win
Can't
as
help
many as
that.
I can. Yeah. But if I'm looking back, even during Idlewild, when I turn into a spectator and I'm watching, it's like you're kind of always rooting for the person that is trying to build their name up and get that next big contract and big paycheck, like you said, from the tournament. It could change their life. It allows them to be more comfortable and buy a van or buy an art, whatever it is, to make themselves feel more comfortable. And so that part's really cool as a spectator, to realize that, hey, if Isaac pulls off this win, his life is going to be changed for the better, and his career is really going to be kickstarted. And so it allows people to really root for them a little more. And I think that's for me, once I turned into a spectator at Worlds, another reason why I was rooting for Aaron is because, yeah, it changes his life. He gets a great deal with Discraft. He's a world champion. He gets all these new discs, all this accolades, all this, and so all that stuff that comes along with the win. And so it makes the fans want to root for that person even more. Um, and so I think that's just a sign of the growth of the sport, and it's awesome to see that.
Well, here we are, just a few weeks left in the season as we start to wrap up here tonight, but a few weeks left in the season, big weeks, of course. MVP this weekend, a couple weeks later, USDGC, a couple days after that, we start things off, where you're holding down currently the #1 spot for the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championships. How do you gear up just to know you have these 3 out of the next 4 weeks or so, are the largest paychecks and the biggest opportunities? How do you kind of mentally gear yourself up to stick it through these next few weeks?
Yeah, I mean, I think that knowing that the season's almost over allows you to kind of exert yourself that little bit more, because you know that mentally you got to give it all you got. Physically, if you have any injuries, you just kind of got to forget about it, and obviously, and just kind of fight through it, because you can rest your mind, and you can go on vacation or whatever after the season's over. So it allows you to kind of let loose and just really go all out with these events. And I think that that's something to where I like that. I think that having an off season is important to kind of reset your mind, reset physically, um, and so knowing the off season coming is that's actually, for me, I use it as like, okay, cool, it's motivation. I want to go into the off season with like, oh, okay, cool. I played great at USDGC. I did this and I did that. I want to look back on my season and be proud of how I performed and how I played. Finishing the season. So I think that's motivation for me, is just knowing that I gave it my all mentally and physically, going into the off season, and that's kind of where we're at in this season.
Okay. Off season right now looks like, and I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves, but off season, do you see that back in Arizona? And do you see doing anything really after the Tour Championships is done? I mean, is that now the new, cutoff, the new end, so to speak, for you?
Yeah, I think that's kind of, it was always USDGC for the longest time. It was the USDGC, then the
Yeah.
tournament or the season was over. But now they got the finals, the Pro Tour Finals, and then I'm actually going to do the skins match. They have the $100,000 skins match at Eagles Crossing.
In Missouri.
So
okay.
that is one event that I will be playing, which normally I
Okay.
wouldn't. But obviously it's a big event. I want to be a part of it. So I'm going to play that the weekend after the Pro Tour Finals, and then my season's done. And I'm going to Jacksonville, Florida, is where I'm going to be going to train and practice and enjoy some good weather.
Okay.
So are you going to move in with Paul? Is that
Yeah, I
what
was
we're
going to
hearing?
say, it feels like a
I
weird
know,
place.
right?
Of all cities, of all cities
Right,
and
I
places.
know.
A lot of championships in that town.
I know. Yeah, I know. So I'm looking at houses and stuff, and yeah, I'm going to be hanging out with Ron Russell too.
Okay.
He lives there,
yeah,
actually. He
he's gonna
texted
have
me.
a-
He's
Right,
like, "Oh,
that's right.
yeah."
He wants to
lives there,
put
and
an
he was
aquarium in your house.
texting- right? Yeah, exactly. Or a sick pool like he's
Yeah.
got.
I mean, but the real
Yeah,
question
exactly.
is, and I need to know, where's Ari going to spend her off season? I mean,
Well, she'll always
she's
be,
what matters the
she'll
most.
yeah, exactly. Of course, she's she'll be in Florida. Obviously, she'll be kind of back. She lives in Redding, California, so she'll be in Redding some of the time, and then Florida some of the times. I'm looking at buying a house, and there's no state income tax in Florida, so that helps. And so I
Yeah,
got
buddy.
that going, and so she'll kind of be going back and forth between the two states.
Okay.
All right, Rick. Well, we're gonna start to let you go here.
Okay.
Is there anything else you want to? Is there anything else you want to share with us that any stone we left unturned or any other conversation? I mean, obviously we have you on often. You win often, so it makes sense. But is there anything we've left out?
No, I appreciate you guys asking great questions and doing the research and yeah, just doing everything you guys do for the show and the fans. I appreciate you allowing me to give my insight and you guys setting me up with good questions. I appreciate that.
Well, Rick, I think tonight officially puts you into the record books for the guest that has most often joined us from a bed.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
so I
Oh,
you
okay.
I
Oh, is
think
that
this
good
has
or
to be
not?
at
Is that
least
just-
8 or 9.
Ricky has
Yeah,
the
this has
best.
to be-
Like, I'm not kidding. Like, Ricky has the best relaxed shots off. Like, you catch him the infamous Utah
Hand
shot,
strength, arm
where,
strength, just
where he's just like laying in the
up there.
grass, and we catch that shot of you occasionally at other events when it's nice out. Just when there's a backup, you just tend to lay down. We get it on the podcast. Ricky's Ricky's comfy. I love it.
Oh yeah, you
there-
got to take advantage
No one
of the
has
company,
been
you know?
in more beds on our show than Ricky Wysocki, and we wouldn't have
Oh.
it any other way. Rick, as always, go ahead, Nate, if you got
Well,
something.
I got to get sappy for just a moment because I don't get to see Ricky as much as I'd like to. I've known Ricky since he was just a little youngster, and I was there the day that he took his very first cash at the Brent Hamrick Memorial.
Yep.
And Ricky, what I'll say to you is you've become a great champion as we always expected, but in my opinion, you've become an even better man. I love how you've really developed yourself and talking about all of these things, not just being a great player, but also being a great mental aspect, taking care of your body. I'm so proud of you, Rick, and I'm proud to be your friend, and I look forward to watching you play as many times as I can on this side of the booth, because remember, generationally, you kicked my butt out. And that's why I'm over here. So good luck with everything, dude. I'm really happy for you, Rick. I'm super proud of you, buddy.
Thank you, buddy. Yeah, always great to hear your expertise, and we're thankful to have you explaining what's going through our heads as players because you do a great job of that, and I'm thankful.
Oh, thanks, Rick.
I appreciate that. All right,
Yes.
now, Rick, as always, give us your final praise, accolades, shout-outs, how people can find you, support you, where they should be shopping, all that kind of stuff. Let's hear it all.
Yeah, just SockyBomb13. That's my Instagram. Pretty post a lot on there, and yeah, just want to thank you guys, and for everything you guys do, Smashbox, and I love coming on here chatting disc golf with you guys and sharing my time. So thank you for everything.
All right. Well, you can also go out to dynamicdisc.com, sakibomb.com. Those
There
are
you go,
places you
too.
can buy some stuff from Rick and support him. And I know he's got a number of signature discs and tour fundraiser type discs. And it's always easy to just pick something up from him in person. Him and Ari working the shop when they're out on the road. Those are all good ways to support Rick there, right, Rick?
Woo!
Yep. Thanks for talking for me, Terry. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, you're welcome, Rick.
It sounds better coming from you.
Already
Paul.
approved,
I
Terry.
am always
Yeah.
here to help you out wherever I can, my friend. All right, Rick. Well, you enjoy nighttime, and
I'm gonna go
have
on
a good
lay on
night.
my bed.
Yes, you are.
Take it to him, Rick.
All right.
Kick some butt. This
We're
weekend,
looking
dude.
forward to seeing and hearing from you
Thank
this
you.
weekend. Best of luck. Congratulations on another GMC win. We appreciate you joining us tonight, and we'll be seeing you this weekend, I'm sure of it. Take care, pal.
Later,
Thanks a lot, guys.
See ya.
Talk to you soon.
See you, Rick.
See you.
I'm not joking when I say no one has joined us
Yeah.
bedside more than Wysocki throughout the years, and
I'm
I'm here for it. I
impressed
love
with
it.
his arm
Holding it.
phone holding.
You need to
skills.
prop that. Like,
He did shift a little bit as the interview went a little later.
you need to be able to prop that. But yes, that's all the insight from Wysocki. Thank you, as always. You know, I say it all the time, but so many players like himself, more than welcome to join us anytime. And when he wins as often as he does, you can't have him on after every single one. I mean, we'd be sick of Kristen Tatar by now, for crying out loud.
I mean, she'd just be a permanent guest.
Yeah, exactly. She should be the host. She should take over Johnny's job.
Nobody could replace Johnny.
All
Are you
right,
kidding
maybe,
me?
yeah, she could.
The one question I really wanted to ask Rick, and we were just kind of running out of time, is I wonder to him how important it is to beat Paul in the points.
Mm.
You know, like I would probably, in an interview, I would probably deflect. Like if
Yeah.
I was in Ricky's
And not
position,
make
if
it personal.
that's kind of why I didn't even ask it, because I don't really care, but just for us to speculate.
Oh, we go wild here, though, Nate.
Yeah,
that's
I
what
mean,
we do.
For me, like if at the end of the season I was able to beat Avery Jenkins or Fellberg or Nico or whomever, you know, all the best players that were in kind of my era, that was a huge thing for me because it was like a little jab.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even, I would never say it to him, but
No.
in my mind it was.
Resi-
So I
the
wonder how
results would
important it
speak
is
for
to
themselves.
him. I wonder how important that is to him.
I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be fighting over, who's coming to do lawn care at their place and their places in Jacksonville or what?
Jacksonville. I
Of
know.
all places.
How funny that, like, you have all of Florida, and we've seen Florida be like
Yep.
this sanctuary of disc golfers now. You know, you've got like the Oakleys and Page up in the Panhandle, and now we've heard that Macbeth and Ricky are going to be in Jacksonville. Kelvin will probably go back to Tampa area, is my guess. Over who knows, but just it's really funny that of all the places, we have this heated rivalry.
We're just hoping to run into the course
for the last
maybe they'll be up
decade.
both.
I can't wait for the first social media post that has I'm waiting in. I gotta wait at the course again because these two guys are just waiting on hole one, and you've got like Paul and Ricky at league or something dumb. Like just
Could you imagine random flip doubles and they flip on the same team?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like Paul and Rick are, please don't Paul, please don't Rick.
Yeah.
that would be epic.
If only.
That
yeah.
would be epic.
That would be pretty funny. So, all right. Well, of course, as always, thank you to Ricky Wysocki, and thank you to Ari for helping. Being so easy
So
for me
the
to.
Woo Sox, are they in Worcester? They must be. That
That's
makes
a
no sense if they were.
Woo Sox. Let's find out exactly.
Yeah,
I imagine Boston area.
Worcester. Yeah, in Worcester.
Worcester.
In
The
Worcester.
Worcester Woo Sox. The Worcester
Worcester
Woo
Woo
Sox.
Sox.
At Polar Bear Stadium.
So,
Worcester Woo Sox.
I know Ella threw out the first pitch,
Makes
but
sense.
really, shouldn't it have been
That's awesome.
Ari? Like just
I know.
woo.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, man, that's pretty good.
All right. Speaking of pretty good, Doss, people are dying to know what beverages here are we sipping on, because not often do I have this opportunity. So for those that don't know, when I do actually partake in any kind of beverages, I am a bourbon barrel aged Scotch ale kind of guy, and we all know Founders.
I'm going to let Nate answer, then I have a question for him.
So we each started with a Backwoods Bastard. There's not enough of those, otherwise we'd have more. But break down what else we have here.
Yeah, so Terry
Ooh,
Miller's
there's a little left.
Yeah, Terry Miller. Yeah, well, I know where that's going.
Yeah, we do.
Terry's explaining that he likes bourbon barrel aged Scotch ales, but really it's imperial stouts, and he actually likes sweet stouts that are bourbon barrel aged. So your, breakfast stouts with maple syrup and things of that nature. So if you do see him out there, that would be what he's going for. But this one here is from Epic Brewing. I believe Epic is out of Salt Lake City. This is their imperial stout with coffee and cacao nibs, aged in whiskey barrels. So
Ooh.
Terry likes the whiskey barrel aspect. I think that has to do with the higher alcohol content, as well as that additional kind of whiskey sweetness that he's going to get out of there. So if you see Terry out on the road, that's the gift. That's the gift.
To be fair, we won't beer nerd out too much here in the regular show, but to be fair, I've finally settled on beverages that I really enjoy. The problem is it's the equivalent of saying, yeah, but I only really like those 90s flat DX Cobras. You know what I mean? Like it's a very niche community and genre of beer that's not easily accessible or widely found. Is that?
I mean, you still drink
bigger?
Bud Ice.
Doobie doo.
Oh, Terry's got a lot of those drinks in him. There's no question about it. It's getting bigger, and I would say even like Bevel. I mean, we do a barrel-aged stout, but it's only once a year. I mean, you have to get to a certain size to where you're going to basically do it every year. But I would say it's more like you are pretty much just wanting to order Dom Perignon everywhere you go, because most of the time the stouts are the most expensive beer.
Oh, well, Terry, you and your
brewery. Yeah, so Terry, you're really fancy.
I've been called fancy once or twice in my life.
So
anyway, all right, we'll talk more
again,
about those details later.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit more about it detail, because I'm curious, because I know, Terry, you're not much of a bourbon drinker, like straight bourbon. So
no, it's the bourbon barrel aging process that makes it sweeter and makes it more alcoholic.
Why do they call it?
Makes it stronger.
Why do they call it bourbon barrel aged? Is it literally in a barrel? That
bourbon barrel. They let it sit for 6 months, 9 months, years.
No,
did the barrel have bourbon in it at one point, and it's being reused, or is it just the style of barrel?
Correct. And really, the style, there's a great book called Bourbon Barrel Stout and Selling Out. It's the story of Goose Island Brewing out of Chicago, Illinois. It's a fantastic book, and if you have any interest in beer at all, I would definitely suggest getting on Audible. Don't read it. Just have somebody read it to you. It's smarter, not harder.
I could read it drunk to you.
Smarter, not harder. Yeah. But yeah, Johnny, that brewery, Goose Island, actually partnered with a distillery down in Kentucky where they took bourbon barrels, and bourbon is typically anywhere from 3 to 5 years for the like regular, and then it gets bigger and longer and
more expensive.
Aging. And more expensive and all that, right? So you get like a 10-year, 15-year, 20-year, all that stuff. But like the 5-year, so just your basic level, like low-level stuff, those barrels become available. And the guys at Goose Island got their hands on them, put some stout in it, waited a year, pulled it out, and it tasted great. It started getting pushed throughout the beer world, and now it's become something that's very regular. In fact, we have some bourbon and whiskey from a local distillery that we actually, it's just like literally right around the corner from where we are. And every like December we drive over, we buy a barrel from them, and then we fill it with beer. The beer sits in there for about a year or maybe a year and a half, kind of depending on the beer and the barrel. And it's just exploded.
Of course.
There's tequila barrels, there's wine barrels, there's whiskey barrels that have had maple syrup in them that then they drain and then they put beer in it. So there's all kinds of things with barrels that have kind of just exploded in the beer world.
Which is funny because I like bourbon and whiskey, and I don't know if Terry does particularly or not. I've never seen him drink it, but Terry likes, and I hate beer. I'm not a beer person. But right. Terry likes and traditionally has liked beer and now likes the bourbon barrel beer. So I didn't know if there was a chance that I would like the beer, but I still don't think so.
There's a few.
Yeah.
We'll go to Eagles
Okay.
Park in
This-
Maguanago, Johnny, and or
Okay.
Three Sheeps up
Yeah.
in Sheboygan. There's a couple that you should at least give a little sip to.
Because
I'm still thinking you won't like them, but
yeah, the closest
and
I
you
get to
nor
a
I,
beer that I
Johnny,
like
drink
is,
coffee too, and there's a lot of these that have
Ugh.
coffee taste as well.
Yeah, the closest to a
I
beer
know,
that
I know.
I've
I hear
ever
you.
found that I've liked is Woodchuck apple cider. That's the closest, and it's not
There you
close
Yeah.
at
go.
all.
That's cider. It's not beer.
I know it's not.
Yeah.
It's
I-
not beer.
I think it's a texture thing. I mean,
Yeah.
there's in a weird way, there's nothing like an imperial stout that's
Mm-hmm.
not in a barrel, and then you add a barrel, it brings it up a notch. But there's really nothing like just putting a big chunk of ice in 3 fingers of whiskey and just sitting there and drinking it over an hour or two. I mean, I just think there's different strokes for different folks.
Exactly.
Yeah, there certainly is. And speaking of strokes for folks, real quick, getting back to golf tomorrow. Super excited, hosting the just for the flex of it. Yes, a C tier here in Bend at Pine Nursery Disc Golf Course. Is a course I played about a month ago with Nate and Val. I had a lot of fun out there playing it. And this was something that made perfect sense to me. A lot of people are, of course, asking, why in the world are you running a tournament in Oregon on a Wednesday? And it just set up well in that I'm here for 4 days, at least 4 days, for the GMC coverage. And then 3 days later, I have to be back for the MVP coverage. So rather than going home on a Monday to do podcast Tuesday to then fly back out on Wednesday, it made sense just to stay here for the 3 days. And then with that, I said, hey, here's this crazy idea of hosting a Flex Start C tier. So tomorrow, starting at 10 a.m., if somehow there's anyone that's unaware or still is interested, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., 1 round, Flex Start, Pine Nursery. Super excited to go out there and host the event. As of moments ago, it looks like we're up to 34 people.
Wow,
So that means
that's
about 10
cool.
have registered in the last couple hours. And all AMs are going to, of course, receive a player pack that's going to be at least worth their entry, and then all pros will get their playing for the money. And I guess what's exciting about it is it gives you a rated PDGA sanctioned rated round, and some people put a lot of stock in that. Some people just like playing the course in a little bit more of a highly competitive format. Whatever the case is. But this is something that I'm really looking forward to tomorrow. And I guess the question to you is, hole 7, I got to play that as the island hole, right? The hole 7's is an island. Do I have to paint the little places where the rocks don't connect?
Yeah, you better get out there right now, Terry.
Should we head out there now?
Let's head out there.
Paint. So anyway, that's
Just use
taking
them-
place.
use umbrellas.
Super excited.
For your lines, you'll be fine.
Oh, that's you just line the OBs.
Wow, umbrellas and
Too soon, Johnny,
and,
too soon.
and 16-ounce cans.
We could find a few of those. So, yes, looking forward to it, though, tomorrow, like I said. And then real quick, I want to touch on Nate also. Nate and Val treated me recently to the farm. I got to play a little disc golf the other day, didn't I?
Yeah,
Where'd we go?
Yeah, John Cornett, lovingly known as the Spaniard, bought, I think it was like 42 acres, something
like that. It was about 40, he said, yeah.
Yeah, just about 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes away out east here in Bend, and decided to put a disc golf course on it. And so we got to play that,
Yes.
actually.
Thank you, John.
With Terry and Nate Sexton was out there,
Yep.
and a couple of our local friends. And we played doubles, and Sexton actually played by himself, which the reason we did that is because he's top 10 in the world. Well, in the worlds, whatever that means. Just kidding. Too early. Too soon.
Too soon.
And so we wanted to kind of see where he would finish, and he shot actually a 10 under par by himself, which I believe is the course record or tied for the course record. So
So that's a
either way.
straight up 10 under, not Cali.
Yeah.
Yeah, not Cali. He never took a second putt.
Okay.
He actually missed 2 really easy putts, but then with his dart just cashed like 2 over 50 footers.
Mhm.
And so he played relatively good. It's like any typical Central Oregon course. If you've been out here in Central Oregon, a lot of juniper trees, so you can play the high shot a lot. And,
Yeah.
and he kind of did that. So But yeah, I think Terry, you were partnering up with Val.
I was. I
Yeah,
had the
that's a good
pleasure.
team.
Yes, it was a lot of fun. We both had
A lot of world championships on that team.
yes, exactly. 5
Putting
combined.
and golfing and
Yep,
all kinds of other things.
No, we had a lot of fun, and thank you to John for
Yeah, it
playing
was
host to us. I mean, anytime you have an invite to play a private course that's not just open to the public, obviously feels like a special treat and an honor. So
100%.
I very much appreciate it.
John does all the work out there himself, and I think it's just cool. And he's so proud of it. And he loves to tell you, talk about the holes and all that. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, a lot of fun. So, and if this ends up being popular tomorrow, there may be more opportunities. I know I like the idea of if I'm in the area to possibly, whether it's Eugene, whether it's Portland, or whether it's here in the Bend area, there might be more opportunities if I have an extra day or want to come out a day early to work in some more of those.
Well, it's
offerings.
currently 34 people popular. So
yeah, well, that to me, I consider that. It's a Wednesday, so I consider that a success. In terms of people wanting to come out and find some action. We'll see.
But that's arguably your Sunday because you start work the next day on the commentary.
It's all work. It's all work. Real quick, I want to also touch on, of course, I was in Sweden last week, but also releasing the Swedish Disc Golf Pro Tour event, the Disc Golf Terminalen Open. Some of you already saw it this morning. We released round number 1. Nate here was gracious enough to join me on the commentary. Rounds 2 and 3 are fully edited, fully put together, and you're going to see those release over the next day and a half or so. You'll see all of that unfold, so I want to get all of that out before MVP officially kicks off this weekend. So that's a little bubble there of fresh content from the other side of the globe. And then I know some people have also been asking about other content, which includes an event up in New York that we filmed last month. That has recently been all put together, and now it just needs some graphics and commentary. So I want to let the world know
You might be doing some more commentary.
It's nonstop disc golf, and that's not the nonstop disc golf tour. That's another story. But
that's
plenty of disc golf
going
all
old school.
coming. I don't even want to. I'm not even going to venture into that world. So anyway,
Johnny V, what's going on in Wisconsin? Anything big?
Yeah, what do you got?
We got nothing here. This is pretty quiet. We're just getting, I'm personally just getting ready for the next couple weeks for broadcasting. And, it's really quiet. Other than, Packers crushing the Bears. That's
Wow.
local.
Yeah, we saw some of that.
What a game.
That's local sports talk. Rodgers is like 23-5 against the Bears. And it's just, it's expected. Like, it's sad, but it is expected. That is the natural outcome of the world right now. So good game, and that's kind of the talk of Wisconsin the last day or so.
Nice.
But golf
has it been as
golf-wise,
warm?
not much.
Has it been as warm as I've been hearing?
It has. Yeah, we're looking at
little-
mid 70s to 80 degrees almost every day this past week. And if I look, I believe it's supposed to start to kind of slowly cool off, but it ain't. We ain't talking bad weather. Like 75 tomorrow, 75 on Wednesday, and then it drops to like low 60s for a few days before it pops back up into the lower 70s. So it's been great weather.
Okay, and I wanted to touch on. We were talking to Ricky earlier about weather conditions and everything else. The fog. I did look at what we're going to see in Leicester over the next few days. Leicester, Worcester area, and we're looking at right now. It is projecting. High of just 65. Rain. Yeah, and a 90% chance of rain on Thursday. Friday, only a high of 53. Saturday, a high of 62. And Sunday, a high of 66. So those conditions are comfortable to me. I'm a little bit bigger, so the mirrors told me. But
well, it's 2 shirts. You're wearing 2 shirts.
Yeah, that's it. But it's certainly not hot by any means. We've played Maple Hill in some steamy conditions, and this weekend is going to be far from it. The dip in the pond on Sunday night might be a little bit chilly, which I guess I would take.
It's so crazy. Like
you're not feeling it.
I know.
Yeah.
Well, there was one year we played the pro. We played at Maple Hill, and it was like 4th of July, and it was hot.
Yeah.
And it was kind of uncomfortable. But I think this. What are we in the 3rd week of September? That feels a little late. Honestly,
yeah, it is.
they're obviously gonna do Worlds Labor Day weekend. So does that mean we're going to go to Maple Hill maybe a couple weeks earlier? Because it turns quick.
Well, it'll probably
you know?
be 2 weeks after.
You think?
Or maybe the week after, but usually we have a week off, or maybe Maple Hill. And that's actually a great question that you're posing. Somebody had asked me earlier today about some coverage and coverage plans for next year's for a big 8-tier that they're running, and I did get me thinking, like, yeah, wait a minute. Hopefully we'll see an Elite Series schedule released, I'm guessing within the next week or two. I know a lot of people are focused on finishing up this year, but Jeff Spring and the rest of the crew, I would hope, for my own selfish planning purposes and for the rest of the world, I would hope we start to see at least a draft of next year's Silver Series and Elite Series probably in the next week or two. I think that's that's more than a fair request at this point, right?
My guess is that it's going to be
almost October.
It's going to be pretty shortly after MVP. I think they'll finish up with the quote-unquote regular season, and they'll do, hopefully, and I have no knowledge of this, or I would have already told Terry about it, but...
Yeah, you don't know what you're talking about.
You're right. But hopefully right after Maple Hill, you finish up the regular season, and then you kind of start talking about next season, because the Pro Tour regular season and playoffs are over. Now we're just waiting for the Tour Championship, USDGC.
Yeah, I mean, and then, whatever this top dollar skins is happening, I don't know, the story about that, but
yeah, Eagles Crossing, and all the
Sexton's going out that way too, so that should be an interesting event. But yeah, we'd love to see the schedule. I don't expect it to be all that much different. I mean, I'm sure there's a couple subtractions, couple additions. I mean, that would be the expectation every year.
I mean, you think about the Silver Series, and this conversation took place earlier today. That you start thinking about who's on the Silver Series, who's not. Is anybody graduating, so to speak, to the Elite Series? Or, what are some of those kinds of shifts as we're looking at next year's schedule? Those are all things I'm interested to hear. Again, normally I wouldn't be too concerned about it in the middle of September, but people are starting to make their travel plans, and people are starting to make their media plans and everything else for next year already. So I'm ready.
I'm kind of looking at the schedule, and I don't know. I think Doss is right. I don't necessarily think that we're going to see really much difference, other than GMC will clearly drop off because it's going to have Worlds, and we'll probably pick up one new event, is my guess. Because I can't think of an event that they're going to drop off other than maybe one of the Texas events. And but I have no clue. I have no clue.
Yeah, who might get that bump up? Who might want to bump down? I mean, those are all, as we like to say, those are way above our pay grade.
Well,
I definitely need to know. I need to get my touring plans in line. Time to
touring
you got to figure out when you're going to
from
walk
your
down
living
those
room,
basement stairs.
to your living room to your basement.
I just
next year.
I feel like any business, and I guess I could, talk about this because Bevel's in its third year, but any business, if the Pro Tour is a business, this is when you start to kind of hit that stride, and you've got some history behind you a little bit. You can clearly look into the future. So I think the kind of the decisions, or like what we see from Jeff and from the tournament directors, I think is going to really, be a little bit more consistent maybe in this next season, because we've kind of had a couple under our belt, for now. But yeah, it'll be interesting.
Before we close out the regular show, I want to quickly touch on this insane opportunity, and I feel like we unfortunately haven't talked it up enough. If it's hit, it certainly will be. But MVP Open to host disc golf's richest ace contest.
$1 million.
Read verbatim a few things. Yeah, 6 p.m. Thursday, 9/22, as in a couple days. 8 men, 600 feet, 3 throws each. Maple Hill Hole 1, 6 p.m. on Friday, 9/23, September 23rd. 8 women, 450 feet, 3 throws each. Maple Hill Hole 1. And $1 million. Let's just for giggles.
What day are they doing
Let's
that?
play pretend.
Thursday, Friday,
Thursday
Saturday?
and Friday.
Thursday and Friday.
Thursday and Friday. how insane if someone hits that.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's the equivalent.
I mean, just think. You could you could erase. You could be. I'm just gonna put a name out there. You could be Ella Hansen, who just came into the game in the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
You hit the ace, and I'll in quotes use the phrase, your career earnings, even
that won't count on your career
surpass
earnings.
Macbeth's. I know. That's why I put it in air quotes for all our Audible listeners. You could surpass Macbeth in one throw, which is maybe a silly, ridiculous analogy, but how crazy.
Yeah, I almost can't even imagine it. I think it's bigger for just the media part of it. Like, if somebody hits it, I mean, what a topic of conversation just in the greater clickbait world of internet stuff. You know, like
but
somebody hit
insane.
$1 million ace. I mean, because it doesn't, you don't hear about a golfer hitting $1 million ace ever. I mean, yeah, they'll win a $80,000 car or $100,000 car every once in a while, but this is kind of crazy. But it's only 8 people.
Yes.
So that's probably how they got the insurance
Correct.
policy to do it, right? Which is like, hey, this isn't 500 people don't have a chance to do this. It's like 16 total.
Yeah, everyone at Ledgestone, I think, is either eligible or can pay $5 or whatever it is for their one chance at, I think, a $10,000 ace. That's been kind of going on for years after year.
What was Matt Bell's ace at
25 grand.
25
grand.
And that was every player in the tournament got one throw?
That sounds correct.
Okay.
Does it have to be a straight throw-in? Can it be a skip ace? Can it I'm curious about if there's any logistical.
What are
I don't know any of those. I don't have any. I don't know if those.
Well, I remember one year at the USDGC there was like a
hole 3.
It was hole 3. How much money was it? 10 grand.
10 grand, I want to say,
and they had to
or a bike.
You had to show your disc like to the camera before you threw.
Yeah, we had to do that at Houston Worlds.
Yep.
That was a $25,000 or $50,000 ace at Houston Worlds in 2002. You had to show your disc to the camera.
That's inflation for you.
I think maybe even say what it was, but you had to show your disc to the camera, and then it was like a 370-foot like slight turnover that couldn't touch the tree that was right in your way. Like, it was an opportunity,
had to be
though.
Clean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was 2002 Worlds.
Because the USDGC, they were literally filming the tee line.
Mm-hmm.
They had a camera that was
to make
at
sure you
ground
didn't
level.
like foot fault.
Exactly.
Yep.
So
that was the thing.
And understandable. There's insurance policies. You got to play by all the rules, but nonetheless, just crazy. So how to watch? The event is free all day. Of MVP ticket holders.
Free with a DGN subscription.
Media are encouraged to attend and get a media pass prior. Please apply, blah, blah, blah. It will be broadcast live on the Disc Golf Network immediately after Thursday and Friday live broadcasts.
I'm so excited.
The MVP Open, recorded for post-production by Gatekeeper Media.
Ah, okay.
Does that mean we have to sit here longer?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Because I have to sit
beverage.
here. Trust me, because I have to sit here longer. So, yes, you will have to sit here longer with us.
All right, we're not going to sit here any longer for the regular show. We're going to close it out.
Wrap it up.
That's it. I'm magically calling it. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Ricky Wysocki. Thank you for all the insights, the extra information, and really just breaking down all of your thoughts and the thought process to this incredible weekend. Congrats to Kristen Tatar, of course, on the FPO side in her dominant performance.
Boy, we didn't even really talk about Kristen.
I mean, because,
rinse and repeat from previous weeks.
Boring. Yeah, copy, paste. It's too easy for her.
She's amazing. That's right.
She certainly is. So thank you, like I said, to Rick. For Johnny V, Nate Doss, I'm Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy. We're still going to have an after show, so don't go anywhere.
I now have 2 in-person podcasts, by the way.
Damn, this guy's on a roll.
Don't forget it.
We're going to go refill the beverages. Beverages.
Yeah, because you need another.
Thank you guys for joining us. This is I have another yapping lunch.
Is it the after Slurcast, Terry?
Possibly. Is it warm in here? I feel like I'm sweating. This has been Smashbox TV Podcast 421. Stick around for the after show. shit's going to get real.
Thanks,
We'll see you then
everybody.
when you step inside the Smashbox.
Late.
Thank you to our $2 and above patrons. Your name is listed below in the credits. If you are interested in being listed as a producer in the Smashbox TV credits and supporting this and other fine podcasts, please visit patreon.com/SmashboxTV. Terry, it helps if you're unmuted when you open the show. Nope, still not. Hello, everyone.
Press my buttons, folks.
Hello, everyone, and
Here
welcome.
we are.
Welcome. I'll just cut that first part out, and the podcast, no one will know that you weren't talking. Let's start it again. Ready, Terry? In 3, 2, 1.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smashbox TV's podcast 421's After
Show.
After Show. I'm Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy, with Johnny V. Holy cow, that was a wild ride. Nate, you master muted me, so our intro wasn't nearly as smooth as always, but I'll make up for it with this beverage.
Terry, I constantly have to master mute you because
How are you supposed to open these?
what?
Like that, have this candle wax stuff. And real quick, we're gonna beer nerd out for a moment, folks.
All right, hold on. I'll show you how to do it. I'll be right back.
Oh, I've already done it.
I know, but I'm going to show people.
Oh,
He's apparently going to show you, Terry.
yeah. So some fancier beverages apparently like to dip it in wax. I don't know if that's extra special to be like, hey, this is we're
Hey, where did my shot go?
so bougie.
Where did
Yeah,
my...
I don't know why you're not on screen. That's how you look to me right now. But anyway,
That's
and
strange.
there's a whole bunch of wax that covers it.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
my camera died.
Who pours mud into a beverage glass? I do.
That's silly camera.
I would
turned
just like to
itself
say
off.
I am supporting
Good
and
son of a...
supporting local beverage
wonder if my-
companies.
I wonder if the camera is running out of battery, even though I have it plugged
And
in
who's to
externally.
say that you're not, Johnny? You are currently ruining our show.
I'll say this.
I'm sure I am.
The camera that we are using here doesn't even work on
It's
batteries.
older than Nate Doss.
Yeah, I have it plugged into my. I'll change it. I have it plugged into USB into the surge protector, but I wonder if just because it's streaming, if it runs out of batteries. That's a really good thing to check now. Okay, that's good to know.
Wait, it has battery?
It is.
Camera?
I mean, I'm using like a small DSLR kind of camera, so it does have a small battery, and then it also plugs in external
Okay.
power. So
All right, here we go. Johnny, if we're going to see your face,
There we go.
we don't have to, but
I'll fix it.
we
up,
can do an
don't you
official
worry.
opening. Okay, here we go. Nate's going to get in on it.
I'm in on the
Do you
opening.
know how the after show works?
No.
You don't. You got to go after show like us.
Okay.
All right, Johnny, I don't know if we're going to see your face. Here we go. Let's do it again. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Smashbox TV's podcast 421's After Show. If we're not a trio, I don't know what is. All right, so
I have the more deeper voice, though, Terry.
Yes, you do. All right, so as always, our after show, if it's not apparent, can go off the rails. It may or may not be disc golf related. We can talk a little bit about anything and everything. Largely, though, it finds its way back to disc golf. Please feel free in the YouTube comments to leave us any questions. We'll try and get to those if so. Scout Recycler, no, I am not drunk. All right, so real quick, I do know this much. I am very excited and feeling warm. Is my face red? It's so sunny in here. So at one point, let me back up. Whenever I'm in town, Nate and Val often take me to local establishments. Of course, they own Bevel, very successful, and a great place to be. However, they don't necessarily always want to be at the one place that they own and work. So we go to a number of nearby establishments, check out local breweries and or food carts, which I think is important as they also host a number of food carts at their property and facility. And one place we had gone at some point in the last year is to this Crux brewery.
Crux Fermentation Project is the official name.
Ah, so fancy.
No brewery on there.
This is a Lost Love.
Oh, there's Johnny.
Is a barrel-aged
wow, that's a look
Imperial
behind
Rye
the scenes
Stout.
right there.
Yeah, I'm
Oh,
using
that's-
the backup cam for now. We'll see what happens.
I don't,
All right.
This makes me feel uncomfortable.
Keep going.
So this is Crux Lost Love barrel-aged Imperial Rye Stout. I had a number of stouts. We had a flight? Is that what they're called?
Yeah.
Little flight tester of them. And let's be fair, I liked them all. And then so when I saw this at a local beverage depot the other day, I decided to pick up a bottle of it. Now, talk to me a little bit about the candle waxing and the proper procedures.
Okay, so typically when you have a beer that's bottled, you're going to use a bottle opener. When you have a waxed beer, for those of you who don't know, and Terry obviously doesn't know this, you have a wine opener, right? So this has your corkscrew, it has your actual bottle opener, but most of them have this little knife right here. And Terry, that's what you use
to gut people.
Yeah.
What?
No.
That's awkward.
This is the knife you use, and you kind of just cut just right below the bottle, like the bottle cap, and then you pop it. This would also be used to cut the foil on a wine bottle. So that's the proper tool. Clearly, you've gotten into it without it. So
I've got all the proper tools
you
I
can just
need.
kind of go ape on it and just
I
get
could
in
chew
there.
on it if I need to. I will get into that damn bottle.
So that's how you do it, Tear Bear.
All right, appreciate that. So we are enjoying a 2022 Imperial Rye Stout aged in rye whiskey barrels. 14.5%, 70
Gee.
IBUs. The IBUs.
IBUs, International Bittering Units, is what that stands for, Terry.
Do I like them with a higher or lower, or do I
the
care?
lower the better.
For me?
You, yeah. You're all about the sweetness.
Oh, yeah, I don't like the bitters.
You're all about the sweetness. Well, I'll say this. That was my first full interview that I was ever a part of with a fellow professional disc golfer.
You said it. You did
How'd that feel?
the Macbeth interview after Worlds. You were there. I mean, it wasn't a full interview, but
yeah, that one you're absolutely right, Johnny. And I was already kind of thinking that one just felt we were there to just let Paul, celebrate, and we were actually celebrating with him in that moment. We were never going to ask like some odd question about something he said in the press conference before the show, before the tournament. So that one was fun, and I think Terry really helped in that one. Obviously, I could have never done that by myself, but just to not even ask questions for a while and just like listen to Ricky talk was awesome. For me personally, just Terry's still got this little hacky cough.
Yeah,
over
this
here.
tiny little cough.
he's a hack.
Let me ask you, does it, all these years, I'm going to say all these years removed, does it feel at all awkward talking to our sport's top athletes knowing just a few years ago you were one of them?
No. In fact, I'll say I'm actually excited about it because I think for me the biggest thing is just hearing the mentalities and watching people grow and adjust. Nobody's perfect. Nobody has the exact right answer, the exact wrong answer, whatever it is. And my mind goes back to when people ask me questions, which is I liked every question because it just gave me an opportunity to start to put down in words what was my opinion on something. Because as an athlete, having an opinion it only lasts for so long. After a while, people stop caring what you have to say. So to still be sitting on this side of the table and to ask Ricky or even just to listen to the questions you or Johnny asked, I don't know. I thought that was pretty cool. I never felt awkward whatsoever because if any of the players know me, they know my only goal is to make them bigger and better. Like that's my only goal.
Well, except for being the biggest Macbeth fanboy in the world, which you're
Well-
accused of daily. You know that, right?
Why would we not be? I mean, he is literally the best player of all time. Ricky is pretty darn close, and he continues to get better and better as the tournaments and years go on. Why wouldn't we be fans of him?
Yeah,
but we also rack on him a lot.
Yeah, and that's what people seem to forget. And I think that's what's probably been my most interesting component. I keep up on the socials a little more than you. And the amount of people that think you are just a diehard fan of Paul in particular, but really of any player. And I feel like they quickly forget that you are the first person to also rightfully criticize a player. It's mind-blowing. And so to set the record straight for the entire world, you appreciate what Paul does, and you clearly cheer for him in his triumphs, but you're not above criticizing any player, Paul included.
Oh, absolutely not. And I say this on the broadcast time after time after time. He would not want it any other way. See, I'm in a very unique position in life, in this life that we're talking about. When Paul came into disc golf, I made him better. When Ricky came into disc golf, I helped make him better. See, I was that guy that was better than them, and they were like, wow, I need to get at least as good as Nate or Avery or
Felberg
or Climo or whoever it was. And then at some point, that flipped. And I'll say it flipped right around 2012. I stopped making them better, and they started forcing me to get better. To where when you start to look at it, of course, I'm proud of all my world championships, and I think that each and every event that I was a part of as a champion was second to none, and I'll never forget it. Winning in 2017 is that moment for me. Because from 12 to 17, I never really was able to succeed at that level. So when I sit here now, I'm talking about the whole depth of their career. From when they were, literally, I was there the day we said, Rick, take the money. You're going to be great. Don't even play another AM tournament. It's not worth it. I was there in 2005 when Paul Macbeth was asking me for a free mini that I was giving away as the current world champion. And now I'm all these years later watching them continue to push the game forward. How can I not be proud of that? How can I not want to celebrate that? And how can I also not give them the respect of criticizing them when there's moments to be criticizable? If that's a word.
I feel like that's probably the number one misconception is people think you are unabashedly a diehard fanboy of Macbeth or of whomever. Usually it's Macbeth because they feel like there's a sponsorship tie or they feel like, and people just can't get over that. And I've heard you criticize and or just call out any player on any shortcoming as an unbiased broadcaster. And that, to me, just people quickly forget that, and they always just think, oh, well, Doss is on Discraft and Paul plays for Discraft, so Doss is just like totally loves Paul, and that's all he talks about. And like, I just, if you really sit and listen to a broadcast, you'll understand that you're rooting for the best possible golf, as I think all of us broadcasters are. First, you're rooting for the best possible golf, and then your job is to also call the shots as they are, whomever that might be for. And it's funny to me that I will read, oh, Paul, Doss loves Paul so much, and then some people are like, oh, Doss just hates on Paul so much, and so you see it from both sides, and you're like, well, which is it? And quite honestly, it's just us doing our job. You don't wake up in the morning with like, well, I have a bias toward this person. I like that person, but I really don't like this. And here's how I'm gonna, shape my narrative today. You're just calling the shots. You're just calling what's going on. You have nothing to gain by loving or hating any player on the course.
In fact,
that, I think, is beautiful.
I consider my job as to be the why. Why is this happening? Why is it in their mind? Why are they deciding to throw this way or that way? That's my job. And if they do something that the why is what? I mean, literally, like, why or what was that decision? And what people don't understand is that I'm not trying to be perfect. I was not a perfect disc golfer. In fact, I made a lot of mistakes on and off the course in life. And so you don't judge it based on that. Everybody makes mistakes. But in that moment, you have to say, yes, that was a mistake. That was not the right play. That was a mental lapse. That was they look physically injured. Whatever that might be. I think that, to me, is, why there's commentary. I mean, that's kind of the job.
Yeah. Wow.
And look, I respect everybody who has their favorite player and their least favorite player. I was asked that question at Worlds a couple of times, like, who do you want to win? Who's your favorite player? My answer is always disc golf.
Yeah.
My answer is always disc golf.
I want the fans to win.
Well, the fans are the luckiest people out there in the world because they get to sit back and watch it. One of the hardest jobs to do is to be Ricky and to be Paul, not as champions, right? When you don't win.
Yeah.
The easiest thing to do is win.
Yeah.
From just, the celebration and all that. But I don't know. I enjoy all of it, Terry.
Wow. It's pretty crazy, the positions that we've put in all these years. So maybe my question, you were talking a moment ago about the media. Explain, what was media even like? I'm going to rewind literally 10 years ago to when maybe Macbeth won his first Worlds, or a year or two before that. Disc Golf Planet TV, Disc Golf Guy channel was literally just getting started in January of 2010. What was disc golf media like in the height of your career?
I mean, if you look at it from the height of my career, so if you were to just say the height of my career was from 2005 to, say, the end of 2011.
Okay.
Which I would say if you...
Yeah, you won your first Worlds
again,
in 05, you won your second Worlds in 07,
on the PDGA,
and you won your last Worlds in 2011.
But I also went on to actually have a really successful end of the 2011 season, so we'll just say the end of 2011.
Okay.
I had a lot of great performances between 2011 and, say, the middle of 2018 when I stopped playing. But if you say that's the height, it started at nothing. It started at, there's a camera crew at Worlds that's creating a DVD.
Or VHS even?
No, it was a DVD.
You were in
Early.
Oh, I forgot. You're one of those young bucks. You had the DVDs.
2000 was my first Pro Worlds, and I think
okay.
that still might have been VHS.
Yeah, it was.
And then by 05 it was, so
it
that
was
was media.
Okay. Yep. One week out of the year, there was a camera that was covering Worlds, and then usually produced essentially a final 9 video.
Correct.
That was DVD based.
Correct.
Okay. Yep.
And they had little, like, here's what happened in round 2s and 3s and all that.
Maybe, yeah.
Little
snippets.
Yeah, snippets. To 2011, Disc Golf Planet was actually covering the World Championship live.
Yeah.
And I remember
Yep.
Johnny V. I
Mhm.
actually remember very specifically turning around at one point and saying, "Johnny V, you got to shut up. I can
Well,
hear you." Because
Yeah, I say that 10 years later. I'm still saying, Johnny V, shut the F up.
because as we know, back then it was my job, and I volunteered for the position, was I got to carry a backpack for Terry Roddy, which was the same kind of backpacks that the guys are using now, but I think it was probably only 3G, maybe 4G, but I think it was just 3G. I got
3G,
to
yeah.
Terry Roddy was doing the camera work. Dave Greenwell was standing next to me, and because I was the guy carrying the backpack, I got to be co-commentator for the round.
Yes.
And so literally we're talking about the players 20 feet behind them when they throw. And so it's like, yeah, Nate Doss just Nate's up to throw. He clipped a tree on the right-hand side, fell in the fairway, and you have to hear that. And I remember it was awkward for us. It was awkward for you guys, but it was the way we had to progress. It was the only way to do it because we didn't have these type of Skype kind of options that we do now. It was just, that's what the players have to deal with if they want. I remember thinking that in the past, like, man, if they want to be like big time stars, they have to be able to hear this stuff from us as the media. And I have a slightly different perspective now, but it is kind of the same. I feel the same way now when, these players have to get used to the cameras in their face. They have to get used to spectators being near them. They can't have the perfect stillness behind the basket that we had 10 years ago because you've got 50 to 80 to 100 people in their sight line now, and someone's going to move or breathe or turn or drink. It was a progression, but you're right. I specifically remember. Or move an umbrella. I remember that. I specifically remember that.
I remember just having
Awkward.
to, on a more regular basis, have cameras around. On a more regular basis, have more spectators around. And when it happens slowly over time, it can be a little jarring at times, but then it becomes more comfortable, and then you start to get used to it. And then, after 2011, which, again, it was not the height of my career, but still as one of the best players and, working my way through tournaments, there was just more. There was more. And then and then kind of Disc Golf Planet ended, and the post-production era started with McFly So High, and then Jomez and Terry was out there, and several other productions. And after a while, I would say when I left in 2018, I was so comfortable with everything that I didn't notice anything. I didn't notice cameras. I didn't notice people.
Yeah, but for the most part, and here's maybe the payoff question is, for the most part, you went through the majority of your career, successes or otherwise, almost uninterviewed, unspoken to, for the most part.
I was interviewed by you a couple of times.
Yeah, because I knew you. And I'm like, oh, hey, let's chat after you just finish your third round at the Memorial or whatever the case was. But for the most part, there were not press conferences.
No.
There was not post-round interviews, especially if you didn't win. Maybe there was if you won because I stepped in and asked a few questions. But for the most part, just disc golf media entirely just 100% a different ballpark. There, and I don't want to say it was non-existent, but it was 90% less.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because
95% less than what it is today.
I listen to a lot of other media, disc golf and other sport related, and you hear some of these other podcasts. Maybe they'll talk about like, man, were these events, as big or talked about back in like the early 2000s or late 2000s? And I'm like, no, because no one was talking about them. No, there was no way to talk about it. You either chatted on a chat board or you waited for a DVD to show up, but there was no interaction. It wasn't like we had AM radio with, there's been Packers post-game shows for the last 30 or 50 years after a show. There was nothing. You couldn't do that unless you called up a buddy and talked to him. So when people talk about, man, was the Players' Cup back in the day, that was a major. Was it as big of a deal as, and it's like, nobody knew. I don't know if it was as big to the players because nobody talked about it. It was just an event. and you didn't hear about it until you read about it in the magazine, and maybe there was some brief, a clip of something Nate said, typed out in the interview of whoever won the Players' Cup or whatever. But there was no media. There was not the amount of, and I think we're still.
Yeah, it was a lot of like emails, like, hey, here's 10 questions, answer these, and we'll put them in the magazine.
Yeah,
there was a lot of anticipation. There was a lot of anticipation when the magazine came to my door. Was I going to be on the cover? I didn't know. Nobody told me. And then all of a sudden, you make the cover or you don't. And so there was, these are all kind of the things that we went through. But to me, as I always say, this is kind of my saying, the road is more important than the destination. Because all of those things, to me, make what we're dealing with right now just that much better. Because it was all building on each other, right?
Correct me if I'm wrong. I can think of 2 covers for sure that you were on. Was there more?
I don't know.
I can think of 2.
I think it's 3.
Yeah, that's why I say
there was 2.
There might be 6,
there was 2
but I can think of 2 in my head.
There was 2 pre-GMC, so I know that for a fact.
And then
Then there's
GMC.
GMC, so
that
there's
would make 3.
Remember when that was such a big deal?
Yeah.
Whether you made the cover or not, now no one cares.
Yes.
Yeah, if
because
it's still cool to that person.
But why would you?
I don't know
it's
if it
still
is.
cool to that person.
I don't even know
cool.
if it is.
Yeah, of
anymore.
course it is.
I don't know.
It is cool.
Is it as cool? Maybe not. But is it cool? Yes.
No, it's cool.
I mean, is it? Like at some point, will you get sick of being on ESPN's top 10? Maybe.
No, you don't get sick of it. You just get used to it.
Yeah,
get used to it.
But I mean, it's still cool. I don't care who you say.
No, I 100% agree. It is cool, but I'll say it's a little less exciting when you've already. So for Ricky's perspective and Kristen's, they won the tournament, they held the trophy, they were interviewed, they were photographed, they were celebrated. All of this happened.
They were podcasted.
The photos were instantaneously on Instagram. And
update to the Disc Golf Pro Tour page.
On websites. I mean, we were there at Worlds. They were in the other room. We were cleaning up the booth. Paul and Kristen were in the other room being photographed. That photo was on the PDGA's cover, or on the PDGA's
background.
website, less than 24 hours later.
Yeah.
I mean, so is the magazine cover cool? Yeah. But by that time, you're already moving on in a weird way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wild.
By the time the magazine cover comes out, it's old news. You may have had gone through a cold
in
streak.
Print. You're in print.
You might be already
full
out of
color
favor.
and on the cover.
I don't know. I think you ask. I'd be curious if and it's hard to get an honest answer. If you were to ask someone like Alden Harris, Gannon Burr, Anthony Barella, if they care that they're on a magazine. Like seriously, it's
yes.
I don't know if they do.
I think the answer is yes.
I don't know. Do they care about magazines?
But I think they really do think it's cool.
Yeah, maybe.
Well, it's just like no one cares about your fucking rating until all of a sudden it went up 5 points.
But it's generational. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
Were we excited about being on covers of magazines? Yeah, but is somebody excited right now about having 100,000 followers? Yeah. Those were things that were never talked about before.
Well, I'm going to follow Dust. Dust, good to see you, buddy. I mean, guess what? Your take's lukewarm at best when you say, well, an FPO player hit 1,000, and if so, who will be Tatar? Yeah, I mean, that's
if someone does it, it's going to be Tatar.
Journey for Page.
But it's
not.
And
it felt like an obvious journey for Page, who got to 996.
But it's not
now, with Kristen putting together, she's had 6 of her best rated rounds just this year, all ranging from 1,000 to 1030, and she averaged over roughly 1,000 for the weekend. Kristen Tatar, you'd be an idiot to bet that anyone else will get to 1,000 before she does. Let's put it that way.
Yes. She is now the front runner for the first ever.
Yes.
I think that's the best way of explaining it.
And I'm ready for it. I'm here for it, as the kids say.
Oh,
I'm going to say it's not going to happen.
Well, you can be dumb and wrong again.
Like she has to average she has to average over 1,000 for the next 3 months of tournaments. Because if you go back through her history,
Okay.
she's rolling.
like, cool.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if she can keep it up. I mean,
No,
if
I'm not a numbers guy,
if you
so.
think she has hit, if you think this is just the beginning, that's one thing. But if you look back at her ratings, she's got a bunch of 950s, 960s, 970s, 980s, like all hanging there that won't go away until 930, 956. They won't go away until June. So she has to basically average 1,010 to 1,015 for the next 4 months until those drop off. I don't think
in 4 months,
I don't think
is
that's
a ridiculous
sustainable.
thing.
Yeah. I mean,
But
I'm saying four months of
3
playing.
events left.
Yeah. I'm saying 4 months of playing.
I
So
see. Yeah,
October,
Yeah.
and then we'll
So
say
say like next May.
next May.
Next
yeah,
May.
exactly.
Ish.
Like
yeah.
I just don't know if
Yeah,
that's,
I
if that's
get
continuously
it.
attainable.
It's a tall task.
But you're
No,
right.
it's
If
a
someone's
tall
going to do
task.
it, it's going to be her. I mean, that's
Yeah,
that's
I
a
guess the
no-brainer.
takeaway.
Yeah, that's a no-brainer. Even the Butler County event, she averaged 990. So
Yeah, and only won by 67.
yeah, but again, we don't care in this particular instance. We don't care what she won by. If you're talking about 1,000 rated, that's a
No, I
different
know.
subject. So
Yeah, 994,
I mean-
987, 987. So yeah, I hear you.
I hope she does.
Will she get there? She may or may not. But yes, she's obviously the front runner
Mhm.
in getting there. There's
I
no
just
doubt about that.
She's so
what I'll
consistent.
say is,
So good.
I mean, if you're
getting
a
sick of it.
Kristen fan at the moment, I really say like enjoy this moment because she said in her post-round interview, I am living my dream. I am literally living my dream. And the post-round interview after post-round interview for her, she continues to just be so positive and so enlightening and just happy to be in the situation that she is. I hope that it's like that forever. But I'm a personal fan of her and several other FBO players, and I love to see that. I mean,
Mhm.
if you could have told me, in 2005 or 7 or whatever, that I was like I never looked at it that way, and I just love that she is, because she's actually saying, yes, this is it. This is what I always dreamt of, and it's pretty cool, regardless of all the other stuff.
Yeah, I guess what I would say to that is find me somebody lay out Kristen Tatar's weakness right now.
The weakness for any great player is one thing, and it's called complacency.
Well, I mean,
I don't see that coming out of her.
no, I don't see.
I'm not saying
anytime
she
soon.
is. I'm just saying that's the one.
I mean, you're saying like she gets bored with whooping everyone.
Yeah.
the one shot
But
that
right now,
the one shot that I don't
Go
see
ahead.
her throw very often because she hasn't needed to is like a true Anheuser.
yeah,
because
like a backhand Anheuser.
like a backhand Anheuser, like a flip to flex Anheuser, where you actually need something
sure.
big to turn over and come out. The thing that Kat does the best, like, is the one thing.
Heiser flips
but-
and
Yeah,
turnover.
but Tatar doesn't need to
I
because
totally
she throws
agree.
her forehand. But I mean, she can work
And-
around it.
Henna has an incredible standstill turnover.
Yes, she
Mhm.
does.
In fact, I would argue one of the best in our
Yeah.
in
Mhm.
our game. The thing about Kristen and the thing about any great player is that when there's something that they maybe know or maybe subconsciously know they're not good at, they can play that hole in a certain way and just
Yeah.
live to fight on another hole.
Yep.
Sure.
She's so good on other holes. Unless we come up on a course where it's 18, or I want to be extreme, 12 out of the 18 holes that are soft turnovers that the sidearm doesn't work on.
hmm
Yeah, she's in trouble at that course, but she can always just play that hole safe or put it in the fairway. And she doesn't throw that shot well because she throws really well just one angled hyzers and a flip to flat. She
Yeah,
does that so
she-
good.
And she might be able to throw them okay and
it's-
just doesn't need to, doesn't put herself in that position. I don't know, but we never see her throw them, and because she always go to a different angle. She'll try a different shot if she has to, because she knows that
and it's
she's
just the
probably
mental
stronger.
strength.
Oh, she's
It's like the
locked
pressure
tight.
she puts on the other like come the final round, the other competitors are like, "Oh my God, can you just crack a little?"
Mhm.
Think of the final round of Worlds. Think of the final round of GMC. Think of the final round of DDO.
It's kind of like that Ricky mentality where when Ricky went out of bounds, he kept hitting putts. Tatar was the same way. It didn't matter how far away she was. It felt like she was getting that stroke. If she was inside 45 feet, she was solidly hitting those putts, if not whatever. And she didn't give the competition a chance to catch her, which is unique as what we've seen in the past with FPO, because Terry and I have often commented like, oh, cool, someone's up by 4 strokes in FPO going into the final round. Is it Paige? Is it Kat? Is it whomever? Okay, that could change in 3 holes the way the FPO used to be. You don't get that with Tatar. With Tatar, it's like she's up by 3. It feels like she's up by 30.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I mean, you're not going to have the blow up. You're not going to have the absent-minded, miscue. You're not going to have those types of things. She's just not there.
What
in
did you
terms
think of
making those
Ricky's
mistakes.
perspective when you asked the question about Kat and Paige, which was that Kristen was pushing them? That was kind of the way I read it.
And what I'll take away from it is that Kat and Paige maybe just coincidentally have had an off weekend or an off year or whatever you want to call it. Clearly,
Paige still has won.
yeah,
2
an
of the
off
3
month.
majors.
You could say it's an
that's
off
just
month,
it. Yeah,
basically.
I know, and it's so funny it's so funny to try and get critical when you're talking about it. And I think back to Paul this year, who's like performed very well, but to his standards, not quite as high as what we've experienced in the last
Yet
few
he's
years.
the top of the Pro Tour standing. Well, now second.
Yeah, second. But you're like, wait,
and the
is he
world
having an
champion.
off year or not? Like, you know what I mean? And that's the way I think about like a Kat and Paige. Like, Paige will always say, like, I'm here, I'm ready to compete, I'm ready to go. It's just Kristen has taken all of the spotlight, understandably so, and she's deserved it. And so it's just a change of the guard to see someone like Kristen or Kat Paige or Kat not on top. It's just not the norm. And Kristen, and it's not just like they've been laying back and Kristen like snuck into that category. Kristen's like, no, hey, yeah, why don't you step aside? I'm going to like claim this podium.
And what I love
with authority
is that she doesn't do it that way.
no, she doesn't
just
do it
lets her-
outwardly,
I know,
but I mean, she
but I
does it
know.
quietly.
Exactly. And I love that she's
Even
just doing
worse.
it in a country that's not her home country.
Yeah,
She
she
just
does
does
it
it
subtly.
So subtly. I just love the gangsterness of that. That's so gangster.
Yeah. I
Ryan
totally
Pilcher
agree.
writes on the board
I totally agree.
that he used a ratings projection tool to calculate it if Kristen shot 1,015 rated for the next 22 rounds of golf, and the 22nd round was played in April, then she'd crest 1,000. So she has to.
So that's not going to
just-
happen.
Correct. Yeah, she has to shoot 1,015.
That's-
Like
You're saying that's
like
not
statistically
possible?
that no, not possible, but not likely.
She has to average
Wildly
1,015
unlikely.
until April.
Bingo. Yeah,
And
that's
So what if
that's a pretty
okay,
big
Pilcher,
ask.
run this
to
out.
borrow Ian's
Run this
line.
out till this time next year.
Mhm.
Say next year's Worlds. What does she have to average between now and next year's Worlds to get to 1,000? We're talking about the quickest she can get to it, but what is it going to take to get to it? That's what I'm most curious.
I mean,
not, not in the quickest amount of time.
if she's rated 987,
Hmm.
that'll probably possibly go up a little bit. You got to figure she's going to have to average like 1,010, right?
All the way till next year's Worlds.
Until next year's Worlds. That's maybe 1,007 or something, but depending on what drops off and what her deviation and crap is. But yeah, I mean, again, she's proving that she can do it. It's just, can she continue to do it? And
Can she sustain?
Yeah, you've got also issues with her playing small events overseas, where there is no like high-rated players for her to push up those ratings. So if she plays
do you really
those little
expect
events,
her to do much of that though? I feel like
I don't
she did
know.
a lot of that because of COVID.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if that'll be the norm.
Yeah.
I feel like when she gets back, there'll be events will be far and few between.
Maybe. I mean,
She
they
actually
run
goes back to
a
Estonia.
disc golf company.
She's not going back to Estonia until October. You know what I mean? Like,
No, I agree.
she's going to play the Throw Pink. She's going to play the Tour Championships. She's probably not getting back to Estonia until just short of November. I can't see a lot of events that she's concerned about playing PDGA sanction that will be between November and next year's Las Vegas Challenge.
And then we have to guess that she's going to just tour all next year. We don't know. I mean,
yeah, I'm going to assume so.
I'm assuming she is.
Someone
but
asked earlier
we don't know for
something
sure.
about her daughter.
Yeah, that's a long time away to be.
And her daughter, as of right now, is in fact in Estonia.
To be away from a family member. If you come next March,
oh sure,
and then you're going to tour until June or July, and then go home for a couple weeks, and then come back. I'm just saying that it's a tough life for a mother of a young kid to just leave your family for months at a time without your daughter. It's going to be difficult.
I do it all the time.
Well, I know you do.
What are you suggesting though? That she's not going to do it next year?
I'm saying I don't know. I don't know how much time she's going to spend here. Is she going to wait? Is she going to wait until? Is she going to come for Las Vegas and then stay for 2 events and leave? Is she going to come here and just play all next year?
Oh.
I don't know, because again, she's got a daughter who's 13. You think she wants to be away from her family for 6 months, for 4 months? She's not heartless like you, Terry. Heartless.
That's true. That's true.
Now, Evelina and Henna are a different question. I don't think they have any ties over there, so they could easily come here in late February, mid-February, roll through here for 6 months and not think twice of it. Tatar's a different story. I don't know the answer to what's going to happen, and hopefully everything is set so she can do that, and then she spends all winter with her daughter, and then she can spend the summers here. But I don't know that, so I hope she comes, because I think she makes the sport exciting, and well, actually she doesn't. She makes it less exciting because she crushes everybody. So I guarantee you, what's gonna really be funny.
Like I told Terry. Oh, go on, Johnny.
I was gonna say what's gonna be really funny, and it's gonna fit right into the stereotype, is when she leaves, or the first event she's not here, and Paige or Kat wins. Just wait for that.
Everyone's gonna say, "Well, they only won because she's not here."
Oh, exactly. It's not gonna matter, and
right.
And that's just it. Because at some point,
here's my final statement on that. You can only beat the people that show up.
We all would know that.
That's my official line.
That's how it works. And it does. It's gonna play into the.
You can only beat the people that show up.
It's gonna play to that
bold statement.
That sports radio thing I joked about earlier is Tatar mentally breaking Paige and Kat so they can't win. Just her being here, is that a big deal? And I don't know if it is. I'm not in their heads, and I would never venture to guess whether that's true or not. But just knowing that Tatar's in the field and the way she's playing has to put a lot of extra pressure on you to think, oh, I have to perform at the top of my game to beat her. And that might cause Kat and Paige to push, where they didn't necessarily have to do that. They looked at each other and thought, we have to beat each other. There's someone new in town, and who's playing very, very well. So I don't know the answer, but I'm excited for. I guess I'm kind of excited for next year. I'm looking forward to next year already. I'm done with this year. Let's be done.
I mean, let's think about it. Katrina Allen's the same age as I am, so 37, roughly, born in 85. Paige Pierce was born, I believe, in.
She's 32,
91. Right? Yeah, and Kristen was born in 92. So, I mean, Kristen is the youngest of the three of them. Mm-hmm. If you just look at the age of, I mean, all athletes are, we have to look at our age. But you look at Henna and Evelina. and they're much younger.
Yeah, in their early 20s.
Plus several of the the Valerie Manahanos of the world and the Kat Murches of the world. They're all super young as well. So, I think over the next several years, we're going to definitely see a migration, but that's just natural, just like Ricky said. And that's why I asked that question about Ricky. What did you think of his perspective? 'Cause I think he's right in a way, but I guess only time will really tell, honestly. It's just I because I don't commentate women's disc golf anymore, which I did for a full season with Val. Like, I'm just a fan.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just a fan of
it'll
watching it.
It'll be interesting to
cool.
see. We were told years ago that the peak male performance for a ball golfer, was like 30-ish. Like that was when they were hitting their peak. They had the experience, they had the skill, their skills,
right.
And they weren't going. Is that going to be the same for a disc golfer? Because everyone kind of assumed back in the day that, oh yeah, you hit your late 20s, you're hitting your prime. That's kind of like, I don't know if that's the case anymore. And what is the prime age for a female disc golfer?
Right.
We're seeing right now with Owen and Kat and Paige and Tatar that it sure looks like your early 30s is looking kind of shiny. Like, that looks great considering none of the young guns can seem to beat them. I mean, Haley obviously got the U.S. women's and can win at any given time. Owen has been dominating, the podiums. She can't quite get that win, but I'd be kind of surprised if she got a win, just because it feels like there's always someone that can just throw a little bit better than her. Like, she seems like a top 5 lock, but a very difficult win. And I don't know. I don't know what the ideal age right now is for an FPO golfer to be mature enough to win at the top of their game. Is it 30? Is it 28? Is it your early 20s?
Because Chris is proving it's 30.
And that's just it. Yeah, she's like 30 or 33 or something, like you said. And
she's 30.
Tatar's 30. I thought she was 33.
That could be. I wish we had this broken down. I have her born in 92.
Do you? Okay. So yeah, that would put her at 30 then, but
make her 30.
That was according to her cross country skiing profile.
World
seriously.
Championship when she's winning some other.
Okay, Tatar is
dominating some other sport.
She's 31 is what Pilcher is saying. I trust what Pilcher says because that guy seems to know a lot.
Okay.
Yeah. So are we looking at your early 30s as the prime of your disc golf career as an FPO player? Maybe.
I think so. Look at Ricky. Ricky's 29.
Yeah.
I mean,
is he past his prime? I mean, Macbeth
No,
feels like he's.
I don't think so.
I mean, Macbeth just won Worlds, but it does feel like he's on past his prime. Like it feels like his prime was like 3 or 4 years ago when he was dominating the sport.
I think age is irrelevant in our sport right now.
I don't think so. No,
to some degree.
I don't.
Look at
Because
Cannon Burr.
Not at all.
The length of the courses.
Exactly.
And how much you have to play.
It's different. I think you could have looked at it 10 years ago.
Irrelevant.
10 years ago, you could say, oh, a player can easily play well into their late 30s and 40s because the courses didn't require nearly as much damage on your body. We're seeing players break down in their early 20s from how hard they're throwing.
Yeah.
It just, and the injuries.
I purposely played less than 20 events, and again, you won't be able to see this because my stats aren't available on PDGA.com.
Just renew your membership, Nate. Just renew your membership.
Holy shit. Where's my $75?
Yeah.
Let me go renew you right now.
Yeah.
You little.
I'll do it, you whiny little baby.
11794?
11794.
Yes!
I
off the dome.
look at Terry.
There.
I purposely played.
I just
less
changed your
than
name to not available.
It's time for another beer.
Woo! So I purposely try to play less than 20 events a year, and
That's cute.
I'm famously quoted as saying, when I came home from the team tournament in San Diego, which was the first weekend in December,
Yep.
I put my bag in the closet and I didn't play disc golf until the middle of January. I did that every year because I knew that mental and physical release and not doing that was important. Now, does that work these days? I don't know. They're required to play more. The courses are longer. It's more demanding.
Mhm.
I feel like it's a young man's game. I really, really do. More than golf. I think
Yes.
golf is a little bit more.
Yeah.
I mean, it's super demanding, by the way. Golf is like insanely demanding, but for some reason, I feel like disc golf is just a little bit of a younger person's game than regular golf.
Well, and the women play
But I'll
shorter
say
courses, and they don't seem to throw with as much violent. Other than Jen Allen, who crushes and the way her throw is, but it doesn't feel like they're putting as much stress on their body as some of the men's players do. Again, other than Jen Allen,
Right.
who just
I think they're
and
exerting
like a Haley
themselves
King.
at 100%. It's just it's just relative.
Well, it just looks more
It's-
elegant. And,
No,
you
it's
know,
just
they're doing-
relative.
yeah.
it's relative, but is their 100%? And I don't know because I'm not a physiologist or anything. Is their 100% going to hurt their bodies as much as a men's 100%? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that.
No, I do know.
Okay, I'm glad you know, Terry. I'm glad you're a physiologist or whatever, kinesiologist or
whatever shit you made
zoologist.
up.
I don't know what you are, Terry.
No, I do know. Spock, I'm not taking off my shirt. Quit being silly.
Hey Spock, if you look at Terry's shirt and cross your eyes, a giraffe shows up.
Yeah.
Well, if he took off
two
this
giraffes.
shirt, he'd still have another couple of shirts on.
Yeah, I gotta stay fully covered up. Ryan Pilcher asks, is Nate purposefully not renewing because he thinks the PDGA should make his stats available as a world champion?
No, Or what did he say?
Or because you don't have the $75? No, he didn't say that.
Okay. The reason I'm not renewing is because I don't play tournaments. It's a very simple answer. Obviously, I have the $75, but I've always looked at it as I'm not playing, and I don't plan on playing tournaments. Well, maybe tomorrow. I don't know.
Maybe
but we'll see.
tomorrow.
Weather dependent. You know. I'm a
Fair weather golfer, man of my own art.
You know it. You know it. No, I don't plan on playing tournaments, so I just decide not to renew my membership. Now, I of course support the PDGA, and I've always supported the PDGA in multitudes of ways as a player, as a now commentating and all that stuff. So it has. I'm obviously just joking when I talk.
However,
about
let's
I
get
think
real
it's
here.
less for me, and it's more for other people.
Yeah, let's get real here for a moment. As a 1 or 3-time world champion, is there a world where your statistics and all of your accolades and statistics, don't slur, should all be available to the public?
Look, here's my.
Well,
I
mean,
would say
a lot of them
I
are.
would say
You just
for
not on the
any-
PDGA page.
No, okay, wait for Nate.
Okay.
So right now, if we go to pdga.com/member/11794 or whatever the fuck you are, we can't see what you're at.
No.
So because you're not a renewed member, even though you're a 3-time world champ. So specifically with regard to the PDGA, who are watching, love you. Should your statistics be available?
I don't believe my statistics should be available. I believe my tournament finishes should be. So
Wait.
Like,
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 we're
I don't-
splitting the hairs
no,
you don't have.
I don't think my ratings.
What?
What did you just say?
Did you just say that? What? I said we're splitting the hairs you don't have. Look how much hair's on this head.
And you're trying to talk about what, my hair? Yours are just grown out more. Don't even get started.
You wish. If there's one thing I can beat you on, it's hair. That's it.
There's a lot of other things you can beat me on, Terry.
Let's have another beverage. Give me
with
that beer.
The amount of
Okay.
rock stars you've drank this week.
That's a good call. Let's finish this. No, seriously. So what do you mean? Your results? What?
Well, the result for
The
PDGA
ratings?
results are stats, kind of. Like the PDGA doesn't really do any deep analytical stats, so it's kind of the same thing, though. Is what I'm
Right,
thinking.
but like ratings and ratings history and all that.
Sure.
I get that part. And I'm obviously not whitewashed from the actual tournament pages. So you could say go to
Yeah, if you like
if
dig.
you go to 05
Yeah.
Worlds, you can see the rounds I shot and all that.
Okay.
It would just be nice to say go to 11794 and just see the tournaments I played and the places I finished. Like that's it.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. Like I don't understand why people can't see that. Now, and somebody could sit and explain to me from the other side of the coin and say, "Well, here's the reasons why," and blah blah blah. I don't know. And I think everybody's I just think the PDGA has they obviously have a way that their kind of business runs and the decisions that they've made, and that's fine. At least you can go to that tournament and still see it, and it's not like I'm not there.
Yeah,
So the
think
history's still there.
No, this poses a really big question, and I'm being 100% because nobody supports the PDGA as much as I do. I've been a member.
We all do. We all
fucking
have for
since
years.
the mid '90s. I renewed every year. I've always made the claim that even if I broke my right arm tomorrow, I'd still
You'd
sign
still
up for the
renew.
PDGA. I'd renew. So
But you're
that's
running
not a secret.
tournaments and
No, but that's not a secret. I've just always been a supporter. The conversation consistently comes up though of, and Tom Schott, Hall of Famer and all around and 2011 Worlds TD and TD extraordinaire, just tonight had talked about Hall of Famers possibly having free entries to tournaments and all these other scenarios, and it just poses a bigger question of where do we draw the line? Ken Climo isn't renewing his PDGA membership every year, but somebody else is doing it just so the stats.
No, but
can
he's
be
in the Hall
available.
of Fame.
I
So
know,
he
and so
should be.
but yet at the same time, the Disc Golf Hall of Fame is not the PDGA Hall of Fame. Those are two separate entities. So
you're saying somebody's
World-
actually renewing Ken?
yes, somebody else
Oh,
is
I didn't know
renewing
that.
Kenny.
Okay.
That's
Okay.
that's the rumor that's gone around.
Gotcha.
So the question is, where do we draw a theoretical thanks line? World champions, Hall of Famers, 100 plus PDGA winners. Like there's so many different places where you could draw a magical line as to who should automatically have their stats renewed, who should have a PDGA membership, who should be renewed for life. Those are all questions that constantly come up, and I think they're valid arguments for people to have. But
I'll say this.
you're an interesting example.
I
those
don't
people.
draw a line. I don't draw a special line. I just say you were a member when you played those tournaments. Those tournaments results should theoretically still be available on your page.
Mhm.
But after you stop paying, your rating becomes invalid. And that to me is my line. I think that should be for everybody. I don't want it to be like, well, hey, you won one tournament, so you get this free pass. I'm not asking for that. I'm just saying if history says somebody wants to look up Nate Doss, what if I was dead? And I couldn't renew. Could you just look up and say, hey, like, what did Steve Tufte do? He's a early 1000, he's like 2022 or something. Like, what did he do? I mean, he hasn't played tournaments in years, maybe, or maybe he has. I don't know. But I'm just saying, why can't you look that up and just see what they did in one place? The ratings and all. You don't need that. I'm just saying in general.
Yeah,
that's my statement.
I think that's a valid question, and maybe Johnny
And
put
the
it in the
PDGA
notes.
could easily argue the other side, and I'm okay with that. That's totally
Yeah,
fine.
I don't think
Like
there's a
your ratings and your finishes are part of your benefit of being a current member.
Correct.
Therefore, we're asking you to be a current member,
And that's totally fine.
And that's fine.
I don't
totally
think there's
valid.
a right or wrong answer. I think Nate, I would not be opposed to the PDGA showing you, like when you go to the players page, like if I click on Nate Doss right now, I get nothing. If I click on Matty Oram right now, and I
mean,
see
somebody in our chat should probably just go renew Nate's membership.
the player
That'll save me $10 tomorrow.
that too.
the player
Do it
statistics
now.
page. I would love it if, like Nate said, if they just kept the tournament results there. How much you won, whatever. And you couldn't go into the ratings details, the rating history, or career wins or whatever. Just keep that. I'm also not opposed to saying, hey, if you win, if you're a world champion, or maybe just a major champion, you know, in the open field, here's a lifetime membership for your statistics.
And that's where it starts getting dicey.
Of course it does.
Major AM,
No.
Major Pro.
No, Major Pro.
You win a major in MA 55.
Nope. Major Pro.
What if
That's
there
it.
was a stats membership, like a minimum membership?
Yeah.
It was like $10. Like, I want to be a supporting member.
I'm
I'm
think
11794. I want
I
to
think
be a
that could be
supporting
cool,
member.
too.
Here's $10 a year.
And that doesn't get
I
you the
think about,
magazine.
like-
that doesn't get you the $10 discount
Doesn't
on
get
the
me anything.
tournaments. Just this. I could see
Nothing.
something like that. I would totally be down for something like that. And I'm
Wouldn't
not
that be
opposed
kinda
to
cool?
the fact
like
that,
you're a supporting member.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Run for the board tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, we're here to announce that Nate Doss, PDGA 11794, better than our friend Matt Brock 11792. Isn't Eric McCabe right in there? Anyway,
Eric
Todd.
McCabe's on our chat board. So
Nate Doss
Oh, what's up,
is
Emmac?
officially running for the board in 2023. You heard it here.
You never
Smashbox TV podcast
You
421.
No,
I like to make shit up, Nate.
I know you do. Crystal ball, Terry.
Holy cow! What else? Baseball references. Hey, Emac's out there. How you doing, buddy?
Literally just.
By the
said
way, we should throw it in the after show. Just a massive congratulations to Emmac. He's now the head coach
yeah.
of the Emporia State
Yes,
Hornets.
Heck yeah, you are.
And, yeah, and he, I mean, he's just a great guy, man. He was out final round at the Worlds doing some photography and yeah, it was great
Sideline
to-
reporting.
It was great to see him. Yeah,
Little Tear
he
Bear?
checked in with you a couple of rounds. It was great to see Eric, and yeah, just super happy for the guy.
Yeah. I hope there's and this is a little bit self-serving. 11674 is Emmac. I hope there's some video coverage, and I think it's going to be Gatekeeper or at the end of the year through Disc Golf Network. It was, and we didn't really talk about it. It was such a crazy honor to be on the field commentating and announcing during that football game.
Yeah, during Worlds. Yeah,
I'm gonna tell you guys, I was legitimately nervous. There's, I don't know, a couple thousand people. Whatever. It wasn't like
it was
50,000.
opening night of the Emporia State football season.
D2 or D3?
D2.
D2. And
Playing
Ricky
a really tough
Wysocki
team out of
and
Oklahoma.
yeah, and Ricky Wysocki and Eric McCabe were out there throwing discs, and I had to introduce them. And then at the last moment, they threw in two of their superstar basketball players.
Yeah,
and to
Like,
throw discs.
tall.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're biggins.
Taller than you,
And
Terry? Wow.
It was, yeah, a little bit taller than me. And
well,
honestly,
not without his hair because he's got so much of it.
I do have a lot of hair. Honestly, though, I was legitimately nervous for the entire time leading into it, and then about the first 3 seconds of it. And then as soon as I was able to get out the first name, Mayum Boom, that was the name, Mayum Boom. He was on the football team. And then after I got him, and then I had to, just talk about Ricky and whatever. I just remember them saying, "Hey, this is like a 6-minute segment, and you're gonna talk disc golf, and you're gonna try and promote disc golf, and we're gonna have Ricky Wysocki, and we're gonna have Eric McCabe throwing." It was, I'm gonna put it on my resume as a career highlight. It was
pretty cool.
It was pretty cool. So I had a lot of fun with it, and I don't know if it'll be on a Gatekeeper piece or a Disc Golf Network piece at the end of the year. But thank you, Emmac. Thank you, Jeremy Rusko. Then we went up in a little president's suite and got a few
and I'll say
beverages
this:
and
after
hung
that
out.
halftime show, the Emporia State football team went on to dominate
Smashed
in
them.
the second half.
Smashed
so,
them. Kind of
job.
like
Nice job, T-Dog.
Crux.
Wow.
So that's how we
We-
do it, Johnny.
We should probably let Doss go. You're an early waker, though, aren't you, Doss? You're going to be up in like 4 hours
Yeah.
or something.
What do you got to do tomorrow?
I'm brewing
We got a flex start to run.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Terry's running a flex start tomorrow.
Oh, what are you doing?
My alarm set for 5. It's currently 10:48 here. My alarm is set for 5, and I'll be at the brewery at about 5:20, mashing in a beer. We're actually brewing tomorrow, so I'll be mashing in about 5:30.
So I read something that there is that there could possibly be a CO2 shortage. Is that anything?
Shortage? Yeah, I read that. I read that same article.
Just backtrack to CO1s. They're not quite as good, but they'll work.
Little less stable.
Yeah, I did read that same article that there's a potential for a CO2 shortage. That might be regional. Personally, from our supplier from CO2, I have not heard anything.
Well, that's good.
We actually just got a delivery of CO2 like 2 days ago. So,
what do you need CO2 for? Tell
CO2
those
is what's
stupid
carbonation.
people.
I mean, it's carbonation.
Yeah.
Obviously.
So we need to be able to carbonate the beer. That's what
Terry does for whippets.
We actually, yeah.
Yeah.
That's actually is that nitrogen or
I don't know.
It's all of it.
It's all of it. Anyways, we also push and move finished product with CO2 as well. And there's different schools of thoughts in a brewery, but once the product is fermented and completed, you don't want to put it through a pump because that can actually knock out some of the flavor out of the beer. So we actually just move it with pressure. So you like fill a tank with pressure, and then it counterfills to a different tank or into kegs or whatever. So, I just, for everybody at home, 148 of you watching, when we do commentary, we're in the booth here, and then we click a button, and this is actually
that's how I see
the
them.
lighting that we have. Yeah.
Turn the lights out.
So
hey, I can do that too.
Romantic.
Yeah, nice.
Wow.
And so
Tear bearer in the dark.
So
when they DOS.
I'm wondering, would it be smarter to have you finish the after show in the dark, or?
He's usually in the dark about most things.
Woo! How long has this thing been going?
A while, Terry. It's almost 1 a.m. here.
10 minutes. Okay. Holy cow. Well, let's start to wrap it up then. What a wild night it's been. A couple more people signed up for tomorrow's Flex Start. Super excited.
I just signed up.
37
Just wait
people.
for me.
Yeah, I will.
Somebody probably signed me up.
Yeah, I mean, let's renew this Nate Doss 11794.
No, please, everybody. I mean, again, there's only 150 of you out there, but please don't. It's okay. I'm okay with it. I just talk a little trash, and
for what it's
that's
worth,
okay.
Talking about that real quick. Everybody, if you're interested in Nate Doss stats, you can go to Statmando. You can look up Nate Doss, and they have a lot. They don't have quite the ratings details and such, but they have a lot of information out there in one place for Nate Doss. So you can kind of just like, ooh, look at that, look at that, look at that. You can sort it by year.
Oh, look at this.
So go back to that, Johnny.
Oh, sure.
Back to that,
Holy
Johnny,
cow, look at all those.
Because the last tournament I played, which was the Zootown Open, you can see there I took second place.
You would. To who?
To Garrett Gerthy.
And
we had an incredible battle. I mean, it was
you shot a 1055.
Awesome.
Damn, you did.
And I kind of blew it at the end, but I'll also say that Garrett kind of took it from me, and he earned that victory. But being that the last tournament I played was second place, if somebody were to ask me what I'm most proud of in my career, of course there's worlds and things of that nature, but I'm most proud of the fact that I took double the number of second place finishes than first place finishes in my career. So I always say the career of Nate Doss is a career of what could have been, not what was.
Did you know that was going to be your last event? No,
I did not.
Because I know obviously you had plans for the
to go to
brewery and
Worlds.
such, but
yeah. Well, we played that tournament. That was in Montana. We drove back to Bend the next day, and the day after that, we started demoing our location that we're currently in now. we assumed that we could get demo done and then construction would be started and then we would actually go play the Worlds in 2018, which was going to be in Vermont. That was our plan. We were actually registered for the Worlds. We hadn't got the plane tickets yet, but we were all ready to go. And then it was clear, like 2 months in, that there was no way we could leave. There was no way. We were so in depth in the construction and building and everything that we couldn't leave. And that being said, stopping playing there in June and then competing in like early September for Worlds that year, where was our game going to be? It just didn't seem like the right time to go play. So we decided not to play. And then I always assumed I would still go play a couple events a year, like the Masters Cup or Beaver State. But I love my job. I literally love brewing beer, being at Bevel, and I love doing the commentary. So it's I'm obviously caught between a rock and a hard place, or a beer and a birdie kind of thing.
Yeah.
But it's okay.
Which,
I didn't know, to answer your question.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you could have been you guys could have been the Barsby Bjerkes spoilers.
Yeah, maybe. Anything's possible. Obviously, I had taken an injury in 2018. I had hurt my shoulder. I pulled out of the Memorial. That was the only tournament that I ever did not complete in my career. And actually, right after I finished that round, I walked right over to Terry, and Terry said, "Let's go." And we commentated the rest of that tournament. Johnny was switching the show, and
that was old school style. You were standing behind players, commentating above them.
Yeah,
that's right. That was 2018 still.
Yeah,
that was 2018. And that was the Terry Claw, Tear Bear, T Square, the whole. I came up with every name under the sun during that show, and So look, I think as an athlete, you always have to be proud of what you've done. But when you're in it, you don't really see that. And now that it's been several years, I can look back on what I did personally and say I'm proud of what I was able to accomplish. And that's why I can sit in the commentary booth and just be so proud of the other players. I don't think of Ricky as a threat anymore, or as Paul as a threat. I look at them as athletes. That's my so yeah.
Real recognizes real.
The sappy stuff, Terry.
I love it. All right,
until
guys.
they open a brewery in Bend, until you've got the Macbeth Brewery next door in Bend.
Yeah, that son of a. It's gonna be since Ricky nor Macbeth drink, it will be fun to see them open competing breweries in Jackson.
That's what I'll say about when we were starting to kind of talk. He says, you should name your brewery responsibly, because every beer commercial on television at the end says responsibly. And he says, in that case, they would be supporting you. So the mind of a great champion. Free marketing. Drink responsibly.
Drink Wisconsibly, I think, is a friend of ours that I actually know, and working on some stuff. But that's another story for another tournament. Anyway, wow, what a night it's been. Thank you guys so much.
421. Congratulations, both of you, Johnny V.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
421. This is just ridiculous.
422.
Ryan Pilcher says, "Is the feed getting choppy for anyone else?" Everything's getting choppy.
It did. I think the feed.
We're gonna call it.
I think Terry spilled his beer on his laptop or something. I don't know.
What the hell did you do, Johnny?
It just
I'm
broke up.
You.
It broke up for a few seconds. It could be on my side. It could be. I don't know. We'll see. It's fine though.
I saw some
drop packets.
Some packets.
Packets were dropped.
Yes,
folks. I'm gonna
like
go
a
drop some
microphone.
packets if you know what I mean. That's not a
Please don't drop
euphemism for
microphones.
anything, but I'm gonna drop pockets. All right, Nate Doss, it's been a pleasure. We love you, buddy.
Love you too, pal.
Johnny V, you're all right.
I'm here.
This has been podcast 421's after show. Thank you guys for joining us. one hell of a run it's been.
421 shows. It's amazing.
Yeah. Only
Yeah,
420 more to go
And
before my
Ricky's done
deal with the
9 of
devil
them.
is.
Ricky's done 9 of them from his bed.
I think it's more than 9.
9? More than 9.
No,
Probably.
it's not more than 9.
That's Wysocki. I don't know. Jumping into bed with Wysocki, and we're closing it out. For Nate, Johnny V, I'm Terry Miller, the Disc Golf Guy. That's been Podcast 421's After Show. We'll see you for the live broadcast this weekend, and shit will get wild next week. Well, who knows where it's going to go.
And tomorrow, just for the flex of it, Terry.
Just for the flex of it. Whoop, whoop. We'll see you tomorrow. You step inside the Smash Box.
Later, all.